Good evening and welcome to the Town of New Falls Planning Board of January 11th. First up is review. First up, I should say, welcome Michael Ziegler as a new planning board member. Peter Mueller has resigned after many years of service. I do appreciate his valuable input over the past number of years and wish him the best. Michael is also a member of the village, actually the chair of the village planning board, so I think we have an opportunity to work very closely with the village board also on issues. We did have a meeting last year. Hopefully in the coming year we have other things to work jointly on. First up is review and approval of minutes. Minutes of December 14th, 2015. Have a motion for approval of the minutes. Thank you, Lyle. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Adele. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Next up, we're going to have 3 public hearings, and I'm going to try to separate them. So I'd ask you to go accordingly. First up is LP Builders. Have a motion to open a public hearing on LP Builders. So, thank you, Tom. Second. Thank you, Lyle. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody wishing to speak on LP Builders?
John Lyons from Lyons. I represent Eric Stutt, who lives down the grade from the property that's proposed to be subdivided. I know that at the last session, Mike, you said that you're only going to be entertaining comments on new materials, so I'm going to stick to that. I'm going to be very brief tonight. I just want to say that since the last meeting, we've submitted 2 letters to the board, and we ask you to please take notice of those. One of the letters addresses the applicant has provided a proposed maintenance agreement. You know, the concerns have been expressed by us and also, I believe, by Dave about how the stormwater system is going to be maintained long into the future. And anyway, we have very, very grave concerns about the proposed maintenance agreement, and we laid those out in the letter that we provided to you. The second letter that we sent to you addressed the issue of seeker, which we may be taking on this evening. We're advocating for a positive declaration. Obviously, based on the comments that we made over the last year, it's our position that there may be significant adverse environmental impacts presented by this project, and we laid that out again in more detail in the letter that we sent to you. Finally, this morning, a letter was submitted by the applicant from the manufacturer from Belgium, from the manufacturer of the septic system, addressing the issue of whether or not those systems are appropriate for use on slopes in excess of 50%. And I just want to say that, first of all, that letter reaffirms what we've been telling you, which is that the state sanitary code does not allow for the use of those systems over 15%. There's a possibility that a waiver can be granted for slopes in between 15 to 20%, and above 20%, waivers aren't even allowed. That letter kind of acknowledges that, and then it just really punts the issue to the regulator, saying that, well, we do allow these systems to be put on slopes if local regulatory agencies approve it. So we're here to tell you again that, obviously we don't think that you should approve it, and we put our reasons in prior to that. So we're grateful for the time and attention, and opportunity to comment that you've given us over the past year, and we hope that you'll listen hard to all the information that we've tried so far to put in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Good LP Builders?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Joe Ariel, attorney for the applicant. Again, sticking to the parameters of the public hearing as described, and in response to Mr. Lyon's comments, just 2 points. On the suitability of the system, I mean, once again, we sort of are in agreement except about what it means. And the fact is that, as Mr. Lyon stated, we know that systems on these kinds of slopes are approved, waivers are available, and that decision is within the jurisdiction of the Department of Health. That's where it will be, and if they don't give us that waiver, we can't put it in. And that's no different than many other applications, many other outside agencies' approvals and permits that are required as conditions of any approval you might grant. So we just see that as a non-issue, it's a red herring, and we hope the board will view it that way. It's obviously something we have to deal with, it's something we intend to do. On the secret issue, this is a 2-lot as-of-right subdivision. A steep slope permit would be required to construct one residence on this property. So a decision that posits this on that basis, when there's been a system proposed that mitigates the issue by design, I submit to you would be outrageous. And I really hope the system's been engineered in direct response to the comments of the public, this board, and its consultants. For a subdivision of this size, it is entirely adequate. In fact, it is, I would submit to you, over-engineered in that regard, specifically to respond to these concerns. And I hope that when you do the secret review and determination, you'll take that into account. There's mitigation by design in this case, which is an acceptable way to lead to a negative declaration, which is what we think should happen here. And I would just ask our engineers here this evening, and I'd just like him, again, the questions were raised about the system and its downgradient neighbors, to comment briefly on that. And then we thank you for your opportunity, Mr. Wood.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Queen from Light Kelly Engineering, engineer for the applicant. I won't belabor the board with what we've gone through over the past several months, at least from my end. I just wanted to touch upon the stormwater system. As you know, we spent a lot of time and effort looking at that in order to mitigate any potential downstream impacts to the adjacent properties. We've done a substantial plan that really wasn't required for this type of development. As you know, it's a single-family home development. It's less than 1 acre of total disturbance. It's actually about 0.9 acres of disturbance. It's less than a half an acre per lot. And our stormwater management plan addressed everything that you would include for a 25, 30, 40 lot subdivision, and analyzed the 1, 10, and 100-year storm to attenuate those. We're doing a number of improvements on the site, as you're well aware, to mitigate those impacts to the downstream properties. And at the end of the day, we feel that, again, as the attorney had mentioned, it is kind of over-designed a little bit, but it is over-designed for a reason, to mitigate those impacts. We're on higher ground, we're detaining our water, we're releasing it to the same flow that was a pre-development level. That is the standard engineering technique used for any type of development. Go further than that, we are redoing the existing drainage swale that is existing on our property. We're lining it, preventing erosion, slowing down the stormwater from the property. That is really all we're required to do. We're going above and beyond what we're supposed to do. I can't help downstream properties of people who live below our property. All I can do is control what's coming off of ours, and that is what we're doing. We are limiting it to pre-development levels. So I won't keep going on, but I just wanted to touch upon that. We've also provided standard stormwater maintenance agreement. That stormwater maintenance agreement is what is provided by the New York State DEC as a template for these types of developments. So for any any type of development, whether it is one lot or, 25 lot subdivision. That's the standard template. And it's the enforcement, it's the mechanism of the enforcement that gives the town the right to go and say, you need to come and maintain this. Without that, what you've been asking for, you can't attain. So, and that doesn't put any onus on the town, puts it all back to the property owner. The town doesn't waste time and money repairing those facilities. That's what that agreement is. I'll leave that to the attorneys and to the technical. That's for the septic systems, and I think the attorney touched upon that. We employed a different type of technology, able to be on ground slopes up to 20%. That's where we're at. The property's had a prior approval for 2 septic systems in the same exact location. The new technology allows us to reduce the footprint, reducing the grade, thus reducing the service. So that's why we made a change. We do have 2 approved septic systems from the local regulatory agency for those properties.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to comment on LP Builders? Okay, I'll switch hats. You have a motion to open the public hearing on the Mohawk Preserve site plan and subdivision? Thank you, Mike. Oh, second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. When we do the application, we'll take care of that. Okay, one thing I wanted to point out at the last public hearing on Mohawk in December, I mentioned about prep work on the Part 3, where we've analyzed and answered the questions on Part 2, and we were going to write up a dissertation on the answers that we have put together based on the information we received, and have it available for the public to review. I will inform you that it has not been out on the public yet. The public has not had an opportunity to review it. With that in mind, it will go out. It's going to be distributed tonight. It will be posted up on the website tomorrow. And I intend to continue the public hearing to our next meeting on January 25th. This will give the public 2 weeks to be able to review the document and to be able to speak at the public hearing on what was in that document. So bear in mind, this isn't the last public hearing on Mohawk, that the item that you were going to review isn't available yet, but will be available tomorrow, and that you'll have an opportunity at a public hearing on January 25th to give comments on that document. So hopefully, going forward, unless you have some specific comments, the document has not been submitted yet, and really isn't a heck of a lot to ask you to review. With that in mind, I'll see what people want to say. Mike, you want to? I would like to give Mike Zergler an opportunity to speak first.
I just want to disclose that as a member of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board, the Village Board has recently agreed to contract with Barton and Judas, who is the engineering firm working with Mohawk. We've agreed to contract with them for a completely independent project that the Village Planning Board will be undertaking beginning next week. So I want to put that out there. If anybody has any particular concerns about that, please let me know.
With that, I have Michael Clark.
Hello, members of the board, Chairman. I'm Mike Clark. I live on 513 Auburn Post Road in the Foothill. and longtime member of the preserve as well. And I have a few points I want to make, and I believe the trail system connecting the town, the foothills, and everything can be a very positive change for the community and give all residents access to these lands. But at the same time, I keep asking myself, is this project serving the community, or are we serving tourism, or are we serving both, or what? And I feel we've hit a saturation with the amount of people coming in on some of these new peepers and everything else. So I have concerns about when we think of this project, the 90-car parking lot, in addition to the 20-car parking lot at Humboldt Marsh, in addition to the 150 parking spaces at Minnewaska being added, the extended parking there, and the article in the paper about the Wildberry Lodge, 250 room hotel, 275 room hotel, with a quote from the New York Times, Paltz Times this week, shuttles to bring guests to the outdoor adventuring. This concerns me. So two thoughts. One, in terms of serving the community, I live up there, so usually on a busy day, I see maybe 10 or 12 cars parked down by Levy Lane, 10 or 12 cars parked up by the gatehouse. So I don't understand what a 90-car parking lot would, it's not really serving the community, it's bringing more people in also. So I'm concerned about that. The other thing is, if the project goes forward as planned, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the road, we don't have the police presence and everything to take care of this, and what we already have in terms of tourism. So I think if the project goes through as is, we've got to look at speed limits on Route 299, Weatherville Road, Albany Post Road, maybe a traffic light, stop sign at the corner of Weatherville and 299. I witness all kinds of things there all the time, and nobody's around. So I just have a lot of concerns about that. I put a letter into the board. I didn't read the letter, but I submitted it to the board. So I'm not for or against the gatehouse project. Really, I'm just for whatever projects serve all residents and preserve the essence of our community. I'm concerned about the very essence of our community. Really, if all these projects go through, it gets too big. Then I feel like we're over the separation here.
Thank you. Larry?
Hello, I'm Larry Badenag, 7 Calvin Boulevard, just off Mountain Rest, and I've been assigned the task by the citizens to read a letter. I guess, I don't know, they feel I haven't met my quota of enemies this month, so whatever. I'd like to first of all copies of the whole thing, and in addition, we have copies of really fine letters in recent times by Nancy, and we would like that put in the record also. This letter was prepared by Bruce Simon. Some of you have heard of speak. He's an attorney. His specialty is labor law. The major law firms, they negotiated the Metropolitan Opera's contract in New York City, LA. And about the expertise of citizens, we had a number of people whose professional life involved in the law and property and nonprofits, and any document that claims to address the legal issues has been vetted by specialists in the field. Once again, the citizens of Schwangums is requesting that the town planning board prepare a positive declaration on both of the Mohawk Preserve's applications regarding the Mohawk foothills. Both the site plan and subdivisions applications. In summary, because the proposed project is a type 1 action, quote, it carries a presumption that it is likely to have a significant adverse effect on the environment. And I'm skipping the references to the legal documents. Secondly, the relatively low threshold for a full EIS is satisfied if there is some possibility that the proposed project may have any significant effect on the environment. Thus, in order to issue a negative declaration, the planning board must conclude that the presumption for an EIS has been overcome and that the relatively low threshold for a full EIS has not been satisfied because there is no underlying possibility of any significant effect on the environment. There has been considerable public discussion of the merits of the proposal by supporters and detractors. But it's not now time for the board to address the merits. The issue before you is narrow and the law is unambiguous. Your choice is not whether Mohonk Reserve, OSI, are laudable institutions, not whether their vision for the 850 acres at stake is noble or flawed. Your decision is whether an EIS to explore all issues is required, and the legal parameters that you must follow are clear. You are well aware that the town of Newport Planning Board has dealt with issues surrounding whether or not to declare a positive declaration for a project and whether or not to require an EIS. Simply, put an EIS, as you know, provides a full, comprehensive analysis of a project by an independent third party. The planning board oversaw this process most recently with the Wilmerite project and currently with the Wildberry project. When this process is followed, at least most of the environmental issues are identified and there is an opportunity to review alternatives, mitigation options, or indeed the option not to approve the project. While there have been numerous studies presented by the reserve in relation to these two applications, each has been done separately with no overview tying together these disparate studies. Therefore, there is no comprehensive review of the totality of the impacts of the proposed project. We believe that this type of review would not meet the test of a hard look, which the New York courts apply as a standard in the Wilmerite case. We refer you to the letter from Nancy Schmidlin in January 7, 2016 issue of the New Paltz Times, and I passed that out, in which she articulates very clearly some of the key likely negative impacts of these proposed projects. Some of her key points are stated below. The full letter is attached. One, the much greater volume of pedestrian, bike, horse, and vehicular traffic in the area of the gatehouse and Lenape Lane will have a significant negative impact on community character. The quality of visitor experience will be diminished by these numbers. A crowded and by in Oak Alley and Lenape Lane will undermine the experience Reserve hopes to provide. One specific question Reserve representative haven't answered is why there must be so many parking spaces. Every parking space to satisfy potential endless demand is in no one's interest. The second contradiction is Reserve's unwillingness to complete an environmental impact statement. Completing an EIS is what the community should expect from a preeminent environmental organization such as the Reserve. Finally, should the Reserve not rectify these contradictions, the planning board should be required to do so. Ms. Schmidlin's arguments stand on their own common sense approach to a project of this large size, complex scope. But we are also providing to the board a summary of the case law that supports the legal arguments that we believe require a positive declaration and an environmental impact statement with regard to these two actions before the planning board. And I will skip the legal arguments and stuff that was included in the Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Rich?
My name is Rich Calvin. I live at 50 Hillside Avenue in Highland, new property taxes. It's interesting to see this project compared with Wilmerite and with Wildberry Lodge. they measure size by acreage, not by what is being worked on and upset, which is a very small piece of property. It seems not only unfair, it seems illogical making that comparison. But I really wanted to talk, and it's interesting, the first gentleman that spoke talked about community. And having a business, I have to have a lot of hope in community, and right in New Paltz. And I do believe, and maybe that's why I got into what I got into, because I believe in community. And it's a changing thing. It's not always the same. If you went back 30 years to the people that went up to the preserve, and there were probably some of them that would say, oh my God, what has gone on here? But there have been a lot of changes, and the preserve has addressed a number of the issues that arose due to increased visitation with their parking lots. They seem to respond well, and they also, like I like to do, or think I, try to do, is embrace the future. And it's also interesting, this sort of, community members versus tourists. I think most of the people that come here aren't tourists. I think most of them, there might be a lot of visitors, but I wouldn't lump them as tourists because they care about the things that we care about. They love the things that we love. And as a community, I think it would behoove us to really want to share those things. And does it change things? Yes, it does. But it might even make them better in a way because we become more magnanimous as a community. I mean, I'm ashamed that New Paltz doesn't have a public bathroom. The university has gone from being a very low echelon university in the state system to one of the highest. There are a lot of new buildings. There are more people. This is another example of changing for the better. So are there going to be other needs brought about by a project like this? There might be some. But those needs are going to arise from all kinds of projects. I mean, we could say, what's going to happen now that the Hampton Inn is going up? It looks pretty big. It looks big to me too, and are any of those people going to come down? But I think, as a community, if we are able to communicate with people that come to our community and share with them that they're not going to turn around and, even if they came as tourists, they might leave as visitors and as people that idealize this place and might want to live here someday, and I certainly invite that. So I don't think, going back to the environmental impact statement process, that I don't think it's necessary in a project as small as this, and I do think it's a great outreach to the greater community.
Thank you. Harry?
I guess it's wonderful that we get to hear both sides.
Harry, for the record, just your name and address, okay?
My name is Harry Tabat. I live on Old Post Road in New Paltz. Should I give the full address?
No.
A little louder, Harry, please.
A little louder?
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you. In any case, I don't think the arguments are anti-tourism. I don't think anyone wants to keep people out. I don't think we want to put a barricade at the thruway and say, turn around, town is closed for tourism. I think basically what we're hoping to arrive at with this foothills project is something that makes sense. It doesn't create a nightmare that will be that will regret. And it has to be done in a sensible way, and we can't just simply say, "Moon Preserve, you're a very responsible organization, and we trust you. Just do whatever you feel is right." It has to be done in an appropriate way, and the full EIS, I think, is warranted. Also, I'm not to discourage this project, but I don't know whether the preservers really seriously looked at alternative parking for this project. It would be quite beautiful for visitors to come visit the gatehouse, but perhaps a parking area, now that the property open space institute bought that now brings the village closer to the other side of the mountain, or the river rather. Perhaps a parking area right across the bridge on the farmland might be a possibility where parking could be made where visitors can park and perhaps visit the foothills in a different way other than park right at the gatehouse. I'm not sure how valid an idea it is, but I'm just going to throw that out there. But a possibility such as this would allow people, even in the village, to be able to access through trails right across the bridge and be able to park vehicles right across the bridge and perhaps enjoy the trails beyond. The many other projects have to be considered as well. The water park and certainly Hampton and all these things, these issues have not really been addressed in the current application. And we would be irresponsible not to require a full EIS. It will be a major project. It won't be a small, minor pimple in the middle of the community. It will become a major intrusion. The adjoining property owners and neighborhoods will be adversely affected unless we look at this carefully and perhaps offer alternatives and work with Milan Preserve to come up with something that makes sense for everyone, not just for the Milan Preserve.
Thank you, Harry. Kitty?
Thank you all for continuing to hold the public hearing open. Can you need to hold the microphone? Let's cut to the chase and look at what mitigation remedies would be available if you were to require an EIS. If you were to find that the traffic impact of this project would create a dangerous situation for people traveling on Route 299, you could ask the preserve to mitigate this by moving the parking lot to where? Further west on 299, Butterville Road, Gatehouse Road, the agricultural floodplain, as Carrie just proposed, that is going to be farmed by the Farmhead family. The truth is, there is no traffic parking mitigation plan better than the one before you. If you were to find that there is a problem with stormwater runoff, you would ask the preserve to prepare a stormwater mitigation plan. Good news, you already have it, and you didn't have to ask for it. The latest alarm from citizens of the Shaw Rose describes the project as the development of 857 acres. But as we all know, the truth is that less than 1% of those 857 acres will be utilized. The same broadsheet makes it sound as if this is a type 1 action because of potential harm to the environment. In fact, it's because it's on an historic landscape created by the very entity that chose the preserve to be stewards of that landscape. But just for fun, let's pretend that the preserve had in fact come to you with a plan to develop 857 acres. Since land trusts are permitted to build housing, under 5 acre zoning for this parcel, 171 new homes could be built. You have the authority to require the preserve to set aside 10% of the land under the Parkland Recreation Statute. The town of New Paltz would then have to decide which 85 acres it wanted to turn into parkland, how much it wanted to budget for maintenance, and how many new employees they wanted to hire to make sure the park was operating safely. And of course, the town would have to install parking somewhere along the way to that new parkland. This, of course, would be in addition to the driveways and town roads all leading to the new houses. If you felt that this was too intense a use of the land, you could ask the preserve to cluster the housing under the terms of our clustering law. Let's pretend all these houses were clustered on just half of the 857 acres. That would leave the town with the financial management responsibility for managing a conservation easement on the other half. Let's keep pretending. Say you felt preserve should continue to allow farming on some of the land to be consistent with the town's farmland protection plan. If at the end of all of this, what if the preserve presented a plan not to build residential housing, not to put in new roads for local taxpayers to maintain, to continue to allow farming, to pay for all the management costs of all the property, and to cluster a visitor center and parking lot on just 8.5 acres? You would have achieved a level of mitigation and concessions unheard of in the history of our planning board. And that is the plan we've got. I only hope that every other applicant who comes before you agrees to donate a conservation easement on 90% of its property before you even ask. The bottom line is there is no mitigation that an EIS would reveal that is a better deal for our community than the plan before you right now. Please close the public hearing and let's move on.
Thank you, Kitty. Tom?
Good evening, members of the planning board. My name is Tom Carano. I'm a member of the Lawn Preserve. I've been before the board several times now to speak with regard to the Lawn Preserve application.
You're hard to hear, sir.
Yeah, I don't think this is even working because I couldn't hear anyone saying that yet. But can you hear now?
Gotta get close to it.
Okay. In looking at this application from the very beginning, I was really excited because I thought this was not only something exciting for the Lawn Preserve and people who use the Lawn Preserve, but for the community. And sometimes it takes someone who's not directly emotionally connected to it, like everyone here, probably the majority of people here, live in the community and board members, you dedicate your time, and I think there's even a stipend for the time you spend here. It's just your contribution to the community. But sometimes if someone from the outside looks at this project, maybe they take a better view. I think you're on the fringe of something very exciting here. I think your community and Lawn Preserve and all the other entities that were involved in formulating these land swaps. And my point is that something really good's going to come out of this. And it's almost being handed to you as a community. You're going to have the connectivity of a village, of a town, of a nature reserve that is probably one of the most successful in the entire country. And I hear the rhetoric, and I understand the emotional part of every environmental issue that's ever come up here, but I need to tell you that this application, Long Reserve, I sat here meeting after meeting. Long Reserve has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on studies. Unfortunately, the people who write and provide the negative press regarding the reserve, and again, it's not disparaging towards their contributions or comments, but Long Reserve is exhausted. It's spent an enormous amount of money on studies with every consultant imaginable. And every time I've attended these meetings, when it comes time for this board to sit here and go over here late at night, I've been here with you, when it comes time to discuss the facts and everything relevant to this project, all the people in opposition get up and they leave. They want no part of the facts or the reality of all this. In EIS, I doubt whether EIS is really warranted, and I doubt, and I say this being a planning board member for many years, and being in engineering field for over 45 years, that if it wasn't for the Mohawk Mountain House and its historical significance and being a national register, I doubt that this would even be a type 1 action under secret. And we may argue with me on that, but as far as the Foothills project is 857 acres. The area of disturbance is a little over an acre. All the roads and everything associated with this project have been there before everybody in this room was even born. Mr. Sperber, so graciously gets up every month and talks. He mentioned in one of his comments about, he made an analogy to Central Park, and it's funny, I'm thinking about Central Park because I did some work with them as well. And Central Park is 843 acres, and this project is 857 acres. So you have a group of people that incorporate in New York City, and they form a not-for-profit corporation in opposition to the Mohawk Reserve's application.
Want to wrap up, Tom?
Yeah, no, I'm getting to something here. So they're in opposition to this. So that would be the equivalent of me or two people in New Paltz forming a not-for-profit and going down to New York City's parks and maybe the Central Park Conservancy and tell them that if you built a kiosk and you took that one little portion of 97th Street near the lake into Central Park, an acre, and it'd be 840-something acres, and you were to decide that you were going to put a parking lot there, that would be a complete detriment. That would be pretty difficult to sell. What I did today in my office, I just scanned in a map of Central Park, and there's a way you can make a tip, and the engineers in the room. To make a tip, you can slide it underneath and you can scale things in AutoCAD. Well, they took their scale on the Google map there, and I just wanted to show you this little black spot would be the equivalent of what the Mohawk Reserve would be if I was to take that 1 acre and I was to go to Central Park Conservancy and say, hey, I want to develop a portion of your project. So, in essence, what I'm trying to say is that this is a very small project, and the extensive studies that have been performed to date are more than adequate. And I really commend the board for all this time and diligence and everything you've done. You have special consultants that come in and review this information, and you're on the fringe of something very, very good. Years from now, people are going to look back, just like they looked at Central Park, Mr. Olmsted, and they're going to say, this was remarkable, the vision that you had to have this community, this interaction with the nature reserve, and the accessibility of it all. It's going to be a wonderful thing.
Thank you,
We're all
Tom.
part of it. Thank you.
Lou?
Good evening.
You. That's okay.
Lou Carriola, Jacobs Lane. I just spent some time on the intersection of Jacobs Lane and also Gatehouse and 299. This is my issue, my other issue about the water, I'm satisfied. I'm sure Mohawk will be a great steward of what they want to do. But it really bothers me, after spending maybe a half hour one day, another half hour another day. What I saw there, that intersection really bothers me. And what I've done is just taken some photos, I'm providing some photos, but I'm also referencing Mohawk's own statements that they made in 2012 in the first reference document, Mohawk Preserve Land Assessment Management Plan. They observed the dangerous intersection of Gatehouse 299. Adding to that is the Jacobs Lane. And I have, if you take a look at the figure 1, you have the blue is Gatehouse Road, the green is 299, and red is Jacobs Lane. This is from the tax map of New Paltz. And you see they all intersect. I can tell you, coming out of Jacobs Lane, you look left, you look right, but what you can see, but you also have to look at Gatehouse Road. The problem is, and spending that time there on Gatehouse Road, not everybody stops. Not everybody turns to the right to try to be able to get approximately a right angle to look west and then look east. And when they do that, you can see the other figures there. I have figure 5. That is 18 degrees from Gatehouse where it intersects 299. That means somebody's got to spin their neck around 78 degrees to have a view going west. And when you're just coming to that stop sign and want to go straight and you're cruising by, don't stop. You make a quick glance, but you're not looking at Jacobs Lane. If somebody's coming out of Jacobs Lane, or looking down. So I'm for their plan B. And then figure 1 is the taken from their document. You speak of option A, which is the one I believe is presented. Option B, I won't read it, you can read it, but they speak of the realigning of Gatehouse Road to create a safe right angle intersection with Route 299. It's not me saying it, that's Mohawk. They observe it. And they also speak of assisting with DOT, county, etc. in doing this option B, which is to realign Gatehouse Road. And they have another document, figure 3, again, taken from Mohawk. And you can see on that
that again, that point where Gatehouse meets 299. And Jacob's Lane is right there, coming out, it's another little line coming out. In my figures of photos I took, figure 6 is showing the 3 driveways as you come off 299 onto Gatehouse. People don't stop or slow down. Remember, it's a 55 mile per hour road. And a lot of them come right off and zoom by these driveways. I met a guy there the other day. I'm standing there talking to him. He has one of those driveways. He grabbed me, he says, get in here. He says, you're going to get yourself killed. And then once you see the brakes, especially you get people don't know the area, all once it's a big turn. So Plan B would save those people. I know it's not easy for them to get out, but it would make it a lot easier for those 3 driveways. It would make it safe for them. And figure 7. Here was a guy that did stop because he saw the traffic coming. But if you can see, in that figure, you can't see if there's a car on Jacob's Lane. You have that traffic coming both ways, and it's a blind spot. Again, if we had option B, we wouldn't have that situation. Figure 8 is showing a vehicle coming out of Jacob's Lane. When you come out of there, again, if you've never lived there or driven out of there, and you want to make a right, you sort of have to go wide, and you got to be careful you don't cross the double yellow line. And figure 9 is showing a guy that didn't, one of those guys that didn't stop. And by the time he's crossing the double line, he's almost already on top of Jacob's Lane. Figure 10 and 11, and I have a whole sequence that people want to see more of them, I haven't. But this truck, I mean, he wasted no time. He went straight out, never a break. And you can't tell me that big truck, he could look back and look west on 299. Figure 12 is another one, and 13. Again, I took a whole sequence, I have 4 of those. Never brake lights. Did he look back? I don't know. He's how pickup trucks are. He's got a lot of blind spots. You're not going to be able to see too much west. 14 and 15 is a guy, he did stop because you can see there's a car there. He had to stop. But again, he went straight out. I would say when I was there, it was probably a quarter to a third. Went straight out, and some of those didn't stop. And another probably quarter or a half did the right thing. They actually turned so that he get approximately a right angle to be able to look up and down. 16 and 17. There's a sign out there. And I have a little note there. My wife just throw that in there. Do you see the car? It's behind the sign. You can't see this car. And then the next one shows them appearing. But especially if you're coming out and you're not looking, you're going to just swing out. That could be a serious problem. 18 and 19, just the other day, came across from Jacob's Lane, walked over, and there's broken glass. Both clear and red, indicating it was a car, an accident. Last year, at the entrance of Jacob Lane, again, there was an accident there. I cleaned up all the glasses right across the entire road. And the 19 is just showing, coming out. There is a serious turn there. We don't see it as much, but that view shows you. It's not only you have that angle there to deal with, but you have the curve. I would ask if the board, I don't know if you've gotten the statistics on the accidents that you requested, but I'd be curious of what was the number for at this intersection.
We just got them today, haven't looked at them yet.
Okay, I'd like to know that. Again, I strongly recommend the board request a review of the option B. If Mohawk observed that, and you can see those first few pages I have, they have it in their original documents of thought to consider. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Andy?
Thank you, Vice President, 142 Brunswick Road. Natalie has New Paltz, but I'm in Dorking. I have 2 points to make. One is, we're talking about 4 acres, 1 acre, it's such a small amount. But I think CBS is probably even smaller, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. It already is in this vehicle. So it's not the size of the development, it's what it's going to cause. The second thing is, and the only time I think I'll quote Dick Cheney, as part of something he said, is we don't know what we don't know. And that's why we have BIS. I was talking to a woman whose son is in a wheelchair, permanently, all the time, and she was pointing out that this development, first of all, he won't be able to be there the entire day. They get tired pretty quickly. So he's going to have only part of the day, hopefully not have to pay the $12, which means even more of a turnover. He's going to be there. And secondly, what other questions do we not know about? Because I was handicapped for a while. I was never in a wheelchair for very long. But there are people with different problems, and we can't really think about the questions. When I was handicapped, I was looking around at ramps and railings and things like that, which I never saw when I was able-bodied. So we need an EIS so that people with different interests and different qualifications can look at this project and give us questions that most of us wouldn't even think about. And that, I guess, is the purpose of an EIS, to get people to come out and answer or ask questions. Never mind. And then Rock Reserve will have to answer the questions. But I'm sure there are questions that none of us even think about for this project. But probably we need to have somebody ask us questions so that we don't regret it after. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Erwin?
Good evening, and again, thanks to the planning board for its willingness to endure so many comments from so many people for so many months, and your forbearance and attentiveness are greatly appreciated, I think, by those for as well as those concerned about the project. I'm Erwin Sperber. I live in Gardner, 142 Brunswick Road. At the top of the list of the concerns, which I originally wasn't planning to bring up, I wasn't planning to speak at all this evening, but there's this sense that's come out again this evening, and this has been repeated on the walkthroughs by the Mohawk Preserve officials when people are being shown the supposed extent of the project, and that is this supposed sense of the need to rush this, the urgency, it's something that has to be done right now. Well, somebody might want to think about the Smiley Brothers Incorporated, owners of the for-profit Mohawk Mountain House. For over 100 years, that testimonial gateway was not really maintained, and maybe the Smiley brothers, who are both environmentally aware people and good businessmen, maybe they knew something we don't as to why it might be a good idea that they didn't do this maintenance for all that time. Why suddenly, after over a century, is there some instant crusade to have this done right away? We can't wait another week, we can't wait another month. And the fact is, an environmental impact statement is not some endless process. Nobody wants to wait this out forever. People like myself with grave concerns about this project also want this resolved in the immediate future, not just within our lifetime, but soon. And environmental impact statements done responsibly need not take any great amount of time. I believe, and I think many people in the community believe, that the real basis to have an environmental impact statement is to bring out fully into the open, in the light of day, some of the consequences and some of the logic behind the preserves project that are not really shown and not really even acknowledged by the preserve. Perhaps the best example of this is in the walkthroughs they provide for so many people who they are trying to show that the project is worthy and that it's just a couple of small little parking lots and nothing much to be worried about. Well, after all, when questions come up about what about the campgrounds, for example, isn't that something really nearby? Isn't that something managed or co-managed by the Mohawk Preserve? The response that's given to that kind of question, and I myself heard it when I was on the walkthrough, is, oh no, that's a separate project. That's irrelevant to the Mohawk Preserve Foothills project. Well, after all, if we are truly environmentalists at heart, and if we understand anything at all about ecosystems in principle, what we need to be concerned about is not what's going on simply at a little site that might be just 1 or 2 acres or so, but we need to look at the reciprocal impacts of all of these projects, what's going on, or what's being proposed at the Humboldt Marsh, what's being done at Glenwood, and the history of what was done at Glenwood, the boardwalk, and the campground. Because after all, the campground, for example, eluded any kind of environmental impact statement on the grounds that it was supposedly a separate project, on the grounds that the Palisades State Park Commission, by being a separate multi-state government agency, isn't answerable to any local environmental review by any particular town or community, such as the one in Gardner, that did at one time want to have the right to exercise some scrutiny, some jurisdictional review over that project, but that wasn't allowed for, supposedly, because it was a PIBC supported initiative. So the point is that there are lots of misgivings about this, and if we look at the total impact of all of these projects taken together, it's not just what's going to affect that 1 or 2 acres, it's what's going to affect the entire community. What about all the traffic? What about all the gridlock? What about air quality arising from gridlock and bottlenecks all around 299, starting at the thruway ramp in New Paltz and going right up to the destination up in the gatehouse area. These are points that were clearly made in the Environmental Conservation Board report to the New Paltz Planning Board, and to this day, these kinds of issues continue to be unacknowledged by the Mohawk Preserve. And many people like myself would want to see these issues examined, not by paid staff or dedicated volunteers who say they love the preserve, they love the mountain, and therefore there should be no EIS. We need to have independent, objective professionals with the same objective spirit that was shown in the preparation of the Environmental Conservation Board's report to begin with. that would help all of us resolve these matters. Last but not least, and I'm now speaking just for myself, not for the citizens of the Shongos, I am perfectly ready, willing, and able to accept the results of what would be decided upon through an environmental impact statement, and I think that would bring the entire community together. It would be a genuine educational experience for all concerned, whether people who love the mountain as I do and want to protect it as I do, and everybody, I think, wants to do that. But what we need to do is also act not with our heart, but also with our brain. Our mind really needs to be focused on what needs to be done, and that's why an environmental impact statement, in my honest opinion, is urgently required. Thank you.
Thank you, Irvin. Anybody else wishing to speak? I will remind you again that the first draft of the Part 3 of the environmental assessment form will be distributed tonight and will be posted up on the website. We will continue the public hearing at the next meeting where people will have an opportunity to have read the Part 3 and to be able to comment on that. Moving along to the next item, does anybody wish to make public comment?
Hi, Mark Rosen. I live off of Albany Post Road. I'll be kind of brief here. I'm quite amazed and wowed by the pictures that you have here. And that's the very thing that, as it impresses me, also scares me considerably, because my main and maybe my only concern is the volume of traffic that I have to deal with to enter New Paltz. And I know I've seen the numbers that were projected by whoever conducted that study. I'm not that familiar with that, which was based on, first of all, I believe, 2 cars per day. And I question whether that's, first of all, a little bit conservative. As a resident living around here, I'm not going to hesitate to use the preserve to walk my dog for an hour, to take a walk and return to my car in 2 hours. I wonder that 2 car per day might just be a little conservative. I wonder if during peak seasons, those numbers, those projections have included the fact that cars are going to be turned away. And you're going to have cars that don't count in your 2 cars per day, whatever formula, that are also going to be on the road. Living where I live west of the Wallkill, I count that there's 21 weekend days a year where traffic is potentially back to Wallkill View Farms. That includes all the leaf keeping weekends, Ridge Fest, Taste of New Paltz, the Ulster County Fair, the weekend days of that, 4 days of weekends for the Crafts Fair, and I wonder if those numbers were also part of that projection. And I know something that was not part of that projection, and somebody mentioned earlier, was right now there are 200 parking spaces approximately at Minnewaska, and Governor Cuomo has already said he's going to expand that to another 150, making that 350. I'm a little concerned that on peak days, and only peak days, I'm sure there'll be many days where this is not the case, that the traffic could be backed up as far as the entranceway to the foothills, which creates its own kind of mess there. On a more practical suggestion that this could go through, I was wondering if foothills could be asked to install, for people like me who have to come to town, a traffic cam, perhaps somewhere around Orontes, around Wallkill View, so I would at least have the benefit of knowing whether I should be going the long way through Gardner to get into New Paltz. I don't think it's a terrifically large request to make of them or to insist upon them. If it would mitigate the traffic, I would be one less car on the road squeezing into town on days like that if I knew there was that kind of traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that was apropos to the public hearing. I'll try to get the public comment session started. Does anybody wish to make any public comment not on any of the hearing material? Hearing none, we're going to move into our application reviews. First up is Thomas Manning. Is he here tonight? He's coming? Okay.
Yep. Come on up.
I'm going to, okay. This is an application for a two-lot subdivision, off 32 and Mountain View, I would guess, right? It had required a variance. This project was sent to the ZBA, because I told we couldn't review it until the ZBA signed off on it. ZBA has signed off on it, it's gone to county, because the ZBA sends theirs to county. ZBA has approved the split on it. Dave, I think we have all the material that we need for a public hearing. I'd ask the board if they had any preliminary comments, knowing that full well we're going to schedule a public hearing for this application. That in an effort of time that we will, unless there's something on the top of your head, we just wait till we do the public hearing and then review the project itself at that time. Okay? I mean, we've seen it before. Yes?
So the map the subdivision map I have is revised 1023. Is that the latest?
That should be, Dave, right? You got the latest, I got the latest on the file here. We just got one. 1214.
1214, okay, so I don't have that. So it might be fixed, it's just a numerical mistake. Under the area of disturbance, the total sum of the tile field area, driveway, and house area do not add up to the numbers indicated, they add up to slightly less. Instead of 27,400, is that what's still on there? It's supposed to say 25,400. So, assuming that.
I didn't add that up.
Yeah,
It was under an acre, which is the threshold.
I'm just saying it because I assume if you're going to submit a plat, you want the numbers to be correct.
Yep.
It's not going to trigger anything.
The numbers are for the land surveyors.
Yeah, I'm just saying you did it math wrong. It's less by 2,000 acres.
2,000 square feet? Okay, so.
Minor.
There is one issue that I communicated with Tom about. There's a existing well for the existing house that has 100 feet plus separation. Which is kind of a notch in that lot. In the road frontage. That should be 200 feet. Since the septic is uphill from the wall. Expect that the health department, because it's an existing well, existing condition, they will grant that by asking Tom to get something from the health department saying they understand that separation distance isn't that, but because of the existing conditions out there, it's something that they would be, that would be acceptable to them. That was the only comment that I had on everything else. We asked for a few things to be added to the map. They haven't happened.
Okay, Tom? You're gonna go get that information from the Department of Health? Okay. Then we'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing on the Wayne two-lot subdivision.
I'm just a little
Yeah.
confused. Wasn't that, when I sent out all those notices, wasn't that a public hearing?
For the ZBA, you did.
Oh, it's from the
The ZBA has to also have a public hearing. Planning board, you have to do it all over again, okay? It was one of those that you have to do in sequence, because the ZBA didn't grant the variance, we wouldn't review the site. So, you're well familiar with doing a public notice then. Let's see, why don't we schedule the public hearing for the February 8th meeting? I have a motion to schedule a public hearing. Any further discussion? All those in favor? If you need any assistance, you know to see Kelly about that. And that's all I was going to do tonight for her. Okay?
Very good, thank you very much.
Next up on the agenda is LP Builders. Separate the piles. Takes me a while to get straight down. Okay, the intent was to have all the information in with the idea of being able to do a seeker determination on the application. There's two things that are going on with this application to bear in mind. One is a two-lot subdivision, and the other is a steep slopes permit that would be required for this project. Bear in mind that regardless of what we, the seeker determination, and George can correct me if I'm wrong, is really to determine if there is a significant impact, moderate large to impact on it, and whether that would in itself trigger an environmental impact statement. It does not give you approval of a steep slope permit, nor does it give you approval of a two-lot subdivision. Okay, so I just want the board members to know that we're just, the assessment form is really to trigger a level of significance on it. So with that in mind, I'd ask Dave, are you prepared to walk through that? And then,
The part two impact assessment. So the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations. Property is in a zone residential zoning district with a 1 acre minimum lot, so the answer would be no. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? The lot density being proposed is the same as is allowed by residential zone. So I would say the answer is no to that. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Again, it's zoned for single-family homes, so I would say the answer is no. Will the proposed action have an impact on an environmental characteristic that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? There's no critical environmental area here, so the answer would be no. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, and walkway? This would produce minimal traffic increase, about one trip during the hour per home. So about 208 can certainly handle that, so the answer would be no. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities in construction of the property would have to meet the New York State energy code? So the answer would be no to that. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public or private wastewater treatment utilities? The answer would be no, because these will be on-site individual systems with water supply and septic. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? There was a investigation, there was a archaeological hit by SHPO that was investigated and found that this property was not affected. So the answer would be no to that. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? For example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? It would be a small impact comparable, that would be comparable to single-family residential development. Which would be a small impact.
Dave, excuse me, just a general announcement. Outside in the parking lot, there's a car, FPX 1785, a blue car with the interior lights on. Just in case somebody's here.
you want to stay the night?
Yeah, I just was out there, so.
Thanks, Mike.
Question 10, will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? I want to combine that also with question 11, which is, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? I answered that as a moderate impact, and I prepared a draft part 3 the board has. Basically, this part 3 just recites what's being proposed, that there's more impervious surface that's going to be developed. As a part of this action, there will be less pervious lawn areas, there will be some clearing that happens. The rate of stormwater runoff will increase if it's not mitigated. There's also wastewater treatment system, a septic system that's going to be constructed on a steep slope, and it recites that the majority of the construction documentation takes on grades of 15% or greater. There's additional description of the mitigation that's being proposed. There's some concern about erosion of the steep slopes, the way the construction will be handled on steep slopes. We have to deal with that. There is a subsurface storage system for the increased drainage by the development, so that the rate of discharge of the drainage would not be greater than the existing condition. That storage would take care of up to a 100-year storm event. There is some language about what's being proposed for maintenance of the system. There's also some safeguards as far as the construction. If they're working on a steep slope permits requires that inspection be conducted throughout that process, throughout that construction. So my general opinion on this is it can be constructed to mitigate the issues of concern. However, I have some concern whether that maintenance will actually take place long term. Right now, I had a meeting with the highway department. There was a question on whether the highway department might be able to manage the drainage system if it had to. I was out to the site with DPW highway superintendent, and he was very concerned about the access, being able to actually get to the site. He said it was going to take specialized equipment, specialized skills that they don't have. Basically, did not want to take on that at all. So, without certain maintenance being performed long term, I have a real concern on this construction of the steep slope. That's the reasoning that I use for moderate impact. It is considered a local impact. The repair and restoration would occur. If there was a problem, there would be impacts to downstream properties if there was a problem. So with it being a local resource that would be impacted, my opinion is that it's not considered by the DEC standard anyway significant.
Okay, so level of use from a DEC point of view on an environmental assessment form, that you've addressed the moderate to large impact associated with items 10 and 11, which is potential for erosion, flooding, drainage problems, or create a hazard to environmental resources or human health. And with that, address those issues in your evaluation of the importance of the impacts, part 3. But the conclusion on this is the moderate impact is considered local in nature. We have to take that into consideration for permitting and approvals, but for short form, for the environmental assessment form. Does anybody have any questions, comments, discussions? Lyle?
I took the drawings over the weekend and moved transects across the area of those sections in the basement and everything. And I don't see anything less than 15%. Lots of it is much more than that. I mean, I don't know how you're figuring your slopes, but each basement would require removal of about 300 cubic yards each excavation. I mean, just sizing off the footprint that you're showing on the plans. What are you going to do with that? Sure. there's no place on site to store it. You can't use it as fast as you take it out, as fast as you excavate the basement. You only have a finite amount of time to excavate, handle the material, and get it restored.
Correct. Most of the, we do need to, any excavation from the start would go to constructing the driveway in that degree. So essentially be developing the house footprint, taking that material, putting and placing it in front of the driveway, so the driveway has the top. So it is a fairly quick operation.
It seems like you're creating more steep slopes with the sides of the driveway from the corners of the house towards the catch basin, off the back of the
Yeah, once
system.
we level up the driveway, then, yeah, we're basically matching grade coming down the side of the house, the walk out on the basement and back.
I was thinking more from the side, front corners to down the side of the house.
Correct, from the front,
Creating
yeah,
very steep.
we're matching pretty much existing grade there. It should be a 1-on-3.
John, I think there's, if you estimated 900 cubic yards of material that had to leave the site.
I think the right spot that we were looking for. Because you were concerned about the number of truckloads that are going onto the site. So we need 120 yards of thick. And it's mainly the driveway areas and the septic. So that's why we felt that it was very controlled, when we were excavating, we had a place for it to go. Because that when we excavated the subsurface stormwater, we had a place for it to go. So we did those cross sections on sheet 7.
Yeah, I see these cross sections, but I don't see, they're not marked on the plan, it's just so hard to tell where they're at.
They should, yeah, not yet, they're these lines of the station. You can see where it says 0 plus 0. I see what you mean, but it's these are the cross sections.
No, it's, I just, what's in the policy. But on lot 2, it seems like the Coltech system is on a 25% slope.
Lot 2, the Coltech system, yeah, is in area up to 25.
And then after that 25, after you get your field, and those are put in level, right?
Correct.
Okay, so then you have to continue the slope from the top of that. So you go across, what is it, about 30 feet? maybe?
Well, we have, the Coltech system, the existing grade is like this. We're putting in the system down here like this, and then we're flattening out the top of it. So you see that there's proposed contours that go across that. So the pitch across the system is only 4 feet.
So if somebody has to maintain that, then they're like starting off like 4 to 6 feet down.
Well, the units themselves are 4 foot. If it was dead level, they would be buried 4 feet. So those front units that are closest to the house, I think on this lot, they would be 8 feet. And as you continue down the hill, it gets shallower and shallower to the town. It's buried, it would be buried anyhow.
No, I know, but-
If they come to grade, there's 2 cleanout boards that come to grade. And all you're looking to do, if you need to maintain that, would be to put a jet down there. You'd be jetting that back to the catch basin.
And
Catch basin
pumping
pumping
out
out.
with the vacuum truck.
Correct, if it was a lot center.
You get a truck in.
That was Dave's comment. What they would do is they would pull hose. Your back time's coming 300 or 400 feet of hose to get to that point, just to suck it out. That's why we had the catch basin. It wasn't tremendously deep, so we could back What I didn't expect was the town to have to come in here and buy equipment and maintenance. The maintenance agreement was really to trigger the enforcement, so that if there was a problem here, it gave teeth to the building department to say, we have an agreement for this property, it has to be maintained, in a certain time frame. We need to get this done. If they don't, it gave the town the ability to either go in themselves, so we have to do that. But basically, what we're going to do is you would contract someone to come in and do that.
And that would be charged back to
Back to the home.
That's the agreement provides for. So they don't have to necessarily have the ability to do that out of their own garage, but they would have the ability, if they needed to retain a contract with the building.
And we've offered these as easements so that town personnel or whoever hires can have access to those locations.
There's a lot of damage that can be caused between the time that it needs to be fixed and it gets fixed, and that's a real concern.
But that's true. That's any system.
This system is in a really delicate place. I mean, it's not any system by any means.
Let's, yeah, I guess I'm not in the direct way.
This type of system is designed, and I know it's designed not to catastrophically fail. It will have to fail over a period of time that they weren't following what we prescribed in the maintenance agreement. That's what we're looking at this after every rain event to a certain degree, and we're looking at this every year as a licensed professional. You're going to catch if it's starting to fail. It's not going to be instantaneous on a day.
Are you familiar with any instance where that can be on a single family home?
The systems,
on.
we have done, yeah, most times, we not, they put it under the drugs.
Where would it be done?
We did a couple in town, Montgomery, Orange County. We've done a few, Walkway as well.
Similar slopes.
Not similar slope, no, similar to these.
Use these systems on private residential.
The homeowner was responsible for maintaining those, or was that part of the stormwater district?
I don't know if I'm because there were large subdivisions in the towns before they realized drainage. So I don't know if they included it in the district or not. I can find it.
There's such a cost for an individual homeowner to maintain that. And if there's a failure, it's a huge cost.
Correct, but based on the longevity of these systems and this application as a residential use, I honestly don't think that it's that significant. I think you go 10 years without having to do anything. It's like a septic system. When the septic system fails, it's large and catastrophic, but there's maintenance that's going to be better every year. This is the same thing. When you have maintenance, you may have 10 years, you have 20 years, it's nothing. And then you get hit, actually, the 1 year. It's with any system. It's with the houses, with the roof, it's really within.
Yeah, the problem is that the people who get affected aren't just the property owners there, they're the people who are downgrading from this. And so, as a homeowner, it seems to me this is asking a lot of an individual property owner. And although you may own the property now, we have a chance to look at what's going to happen in decades from now, because that's what this will be. The system may be robust, but from, I'm new to this board, but was able to go and take a look at the site and have read a lot about this. So I'm nervous about the fact, one, that the town really doesn't want to take responsibility for overseeing this, and I'm not surprised. And you're asking for enforcement from the building department, which is what you said, that I'm not even certain if that's inaccurate, if that's where enforcement would lie. But they have to be willing to take on that responsibility. And this seems to me that this requires a fairly active participation by the property owners and the town, because on the one hand you're saying you don't need to do anything for 10 or 20 years, on the other hand that presumes that you're doing things on a monthly maintenance schedule, that it's just, it's discomforting, okay, I have to say.
There's some facts about that downgrading impact that really should be discussed. 'Cause we understand the concern, we look through.
If you're understanding your concern, I understand your concern. Well, we are trying to address the issues raised by the board, we need to address the stormwater and as well as maintenance. And that's how we come to this point. And the maintenance agreement is the standard for basically the state. That's what we're going to see out of.
Yes.
Anything. So retention basin for 20 homes or this underground system for, in this case, 1 home. And what that does is it provides enforcement, which would be done through the building fund. If there's a problem here, they would be the ones that would notify to go out and take a look at this. And all it's doing is making sure that the property owner just doesn't, just say, well, there's nothing you can't do, it doesn't really matter, there's no agreement, there's nothing enforcing. So that's what that does. It doesn't put the town necessarily on the hook, because you have the right, not the obligation, to do anything. So if it comes back and finally go through the whole thing, the town isn't on the hook to go there and do something about that.
That's true.
So in that regard, that's how we're working that out. But if I could just touch back on the catastrophic of the failure, if you honestly take an overall look at if the system were to fail, what would happen is it would probably be most likely clogged, because the whole thing is gravel underneath, it has an underdrain underneath it. So it's constantly taking water, it's actually diverting water to the existing water course where you want it to go. Where we're doing all that work, with the riprap, and basically shoring that whole thing. So it's taking the water, it's containing it, and it's taking it to the drainage source where we want it to go. So it's not coming down the slope anymore to the neighbor's property. If it does fail, it will fail because it's probably clogged with leaves, most likely based on residential use. So what will happen is water will either just sit, stagnant, or just sit in there waiting to be cleaned, or it'll filter out more slowly. If it does so happen to come out of the ground and bubble up, it's going to find its way to that swale that we've redone, because it's all aiming this way downhill. So it's going to get to the existing water course that it's going to now. There's a house located here.
Yeah, I know which one it is.
Basically, there's an existing residence here. These are our two properties. Existing residence here, there's an existing residence here. These were failed. They're going to collect in the existing water course. It comes down and goes under here, goes under the culvert, under the driveway. There would really be no impact to any structures, there would be no impact to anything that's down there, except there'll be water going down. But it'll be going down in the existing water courses that are currently there. That's where you want it to go. That's why we brought the systems up, and we captured everything we were doing, captured as much as we could on the site to get it in there, so that it's diverted to the existing water course where you want it to go, to try to limit any sort of runoff to the adjacent properties, to reduce that. So when I say that we meet our pre-development levels, we do. But we also should see a reduction of runoff in this area going to his property, because we're diverting to the swale where it belongs. From there, the swales are very poorly maintained once it's on the property, they're in the same condition that the property is. So what we're going to do is, that's why we're doing it in our part. But the downstream swales also have had no maintenance and are in poor shape. And there's nothing we can do about that. There's also a second swale that cuts up here, like you can see it. You see that very faint line that goes all the way up? That's the existing house. Another swale off of our property that somebody constructed to cut this runoff off. It's not being maintained either. And it's basically overgrown and flat. And it's actually holding it, it's trapping it. So that's a whole other, it's not our issue. So what we have done is we've mitigated the best possible manner to reduce it to the neighboring property and to get it into courses where it's supposed to go. So even if it's a catastrophic failure.
John, I disagree about the failure mechanism. I think the other one is right there on the slope. You have gravel that's under the units, and that's against the downslope there. I mean, the failure could be the blowout of that slope and not anything going toward that.
It could, and if it blows out, it's still going to travel in a direction that's going to take you towards the existing water course. So it's essentially just going to leak out the bottom if it does fail. And that's why we've also taken the slope there and we kind of flattened it out, so to avoid having so that can be fixed.
I just want to get around to see if we have time. Did you have anything to ask Adele? I would like to get a motion on this, at least so I can close the public hearing, because it's the longest public hearing I've had open in my career at the planning board. The question is on determination of significance. And whether we have enough information for an environmental assessment, whether it's, we should declare a negative declaration on this. We still have to come back and determine whether this has a steep slope, and that takes into other things besides the level of DEC associates with environmental assessments forms. So we're not doing anything here except saying we have all the documentation, and we've done an assessment on it. There are systems in place in here that will operate. We still have the same driving issue of maintenance and continuation of failure of these and the impacts on it, on construction on steep slopes. So we still have to come back, and I'm not ready to do that tonight, talk about construction on steep slopes as a board and determine whether we are comfortable with what we have or whether we have reservations about it. So I think at this stage of the game, all I would want to do is tonight is close out the do the determination on seeker, and then come back in and separate, because if there are any engineering questions we still have, we can ask that. But I still think we have an overall discussion on reviewing the steep slopes requirements and seeing how this fits in. We haven't done a steep slope permit in quite a while, but I think that's the key on this one, prior to any type of subdivision. The board comfortable with going in that direction?
My understanding is that they haven't actually applied for a steep slopes permit yet, correct?
It's part of the application, with the subdivision application, we were running them together. We would have to grant the steep slope
I
permit.
understand we do, but they haven't actually filled out an application.
If we don't have one, we need one on record then. Well, I'm not sure what the application is.
I'm just, according to the building inspector today, that's what I was told, so I just, okay.
Okay, so do I get a motion for a negative declaration on the LP Builders to propose two-lot subdivision with the Part 3? I mean, I'll put it this way, it was handed out today. I will take a vote on this thing. If people have comments on the Part 3, I'll allow modifications next week, since we just read it tonight.
Can modify and make that before you take action.
Okay.
If new information comes to light or changes in the project, you can modify.
So, two things. One, I want to take a vote on the neg deck. Two, I want to give the board an opportunity to review the evaluation of the impacts and to make any modifications, and we'll take care of that next meeting, before, as George said, before we take any action. Their side of the coin is we need a steep slopes application, and we'll take that all under advisement at the next go around. Sound good? Couple months? Okay. Can I have a motion for a negative declaration on the LP Buildings proposed two-lot subdivision? Anybody? I'll propose it. Do I have a second? Motion could have failed because of lack of a second. Okay. We've done all we can tonight. I propose that we review the assessment, part 3, be ready to vote on it at the next meeting. Okay, thank you. Oh, Joe? Yeah.
Was part 2 distributed to the planning board last week? The last meeting?
No. Part 2 is just a 2-pager, short form.
Just a short one?
Right.
Okay. First time we heard about this tonight?
Yeah. Okay. Next up is the Mohawk Reserve.
We didn't, stand up during the public hearing to answer or refute any statements that since they've been repeated so many times during this process. Let me just say, with respect to the campground, it's a New York State project, and that project did in fact undergo secret to the state's Environmental Management Bureau. They also had a public hearing pursuant to Minnewaska's master plan. And we, the preserve, although we were not the applicant for that project, we are now the manager of the project. We are the ones that shepherded that project through the town of Gardner as a courtesy. And we brought that project in at the beginning, got design input from Gardner. They asked us to not seek their approval. They did not want to review that project or have jurisdiction over that project. So you can actually call Mike Boyle if you want to confirm that. But it's been repeated so many times that we skirted seeker, or skirted approval, or skirted the town of Gardner. We actually brought that through the Ulster County Health Department, the Environmental Management Bureau of the state, and twice to Gardner as a courtesy to get design input. We brought it back at the end and they said they were happy with it. We also worked with neighbors to that project 24 months during that process. And since it's been beyond, the campground's now been in place for a year and there's not been a single year. I want to just also say with respect to the traffic study that campground, you asked us to look at that campground, and that campground at the peak hour moves 6 cars per hour to Route 299, which has a base flow of 4,822 cars per day. So I just want to state that for the record.
If I could just say something, I drove by there the other day and there were people parking in the road in front of that campground, so obviously, that wasn't the intention.
Was it the BDC campground or the one that has the brown metal gates in it?
No, it's the new campground.
Parking on the road? Well, actually, Gardner worked with us to pass no parking zone there, so Gardner has the ability to enforce the.
Whether the number of cars per campsite was being exceeded, I don't have any idea. I just
No, the campground's actually closed for the season, so.
That's bizarre because there's 4 or 5 cars half into the ditch, parked outside the gate.
Yeah, because it's closed for the season, so.
Well, this is in the first part of the summer, not things to do.
Okay, and it'll close at the end of November.
Okay.
Mike, just if I could too, with respect to just the EIS, because I'm hearing the same thing over and over and over, that type 1 action that requires an EIS. I know that probably most of the board knows this,
already, but a type 1 action does not presuppose an EIS under any circumstance. It says that what the regulations say is that an EIS may be required if you cannot mitigate the impacts to no adverse effect or non-significant adverse effect. And I just want to point out that with regard to the classification of this action as a type 1 action, the applicant determined to classify this as a type 1 action, and my understanding is the board agreed as a type 1 action because of its proximity to the historic designation. But I do want to read this board, the regulations applied to this particular instance. I think that we could argue, and if I need to, I plan to argue at some point, that this is not a type 1 action at all. Under 617.4B9, it reads, this governs type 1 actions. This is how the regulations read. Any unlisted action, and then the operative part is, in quotes, unless the action is designed for the preservation of the facility or site, occurring wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any historic building, structure, facility, site, or district or prehistoric site that is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, or that has been proposed from the New York State Board on Historic Preservation for the recommendation to the State Historic Preservation Officer for nomination for inclusion on the National Register, or that is listed on the State Register of Historic Places, omit the citation. So really, in effect, this project is for the preservation of the facility or the site. That is presupposed by the entire submittal by my client, that is for the continued preservation of this facility or site. So I think beyond a cogent argument can be made that this shouldn't even be classified as type 1. It could easily be classified as, and properly classified as, unlisted. The reason that lawyers in general err on the side of caution and say, look, if there's any question at all, classify it as type 1, because then we know that we're doing a coordinated secret review. We know that we're following all of the most strenuous procedures for a type 1 action. And that takes away that argument that you didn't follow some of those strenuous procedures. But the fact that something is classified as type 1, especially in this instance, is not in and of itself charismatic. That's the point that I want to go.
Okay.
You also have a long and breathy address of seeker and type 1 actions and mitigations in my November 16th submittal. But thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Just for perspective, the way I look at type 1 is, there's a presumption of the EIS, that presumption is rebuttable. And when Mike speaks of mitigation, we can't mitigate out of the EIS. There has to be changes to the project that are resolved by the applicant in response to public comment. This is an acceptable path, because you consider the action as it's finally presented to you. You do not require or impose litigation in order to avoid and make a positive declaration. You can't do that. The applicant can change its modified proposal so that it eliminates or addresses potential concerns down to the point that it's not a significant concern.
I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
Fine. Thank you, I think. All right. Carol, you're on. Tell us what you've handed out.
This is considered preliminary finding. This will be modified substantially. The comments we discussed on Friday now incorporated into this particular document. So some of the sections are final, some of them will require some substantial improvements. Do you want to say that?
Basically, what notice of determination, part 3, write-up, based on the review that we have done on the part two, and the boxes checked and things of that sort. So what we're getting in here, once you read through it, and we're not going to read through it tonight, it's quite a few pages, is addressing each one of the components of the EAF, Part 2, land, groundwater, surface water, geological features, and addressing in it the information that we received, the comments that have been raised, and addressing responses to it. Just go ahead.
It says incorporate all 18 sections of the, as indicated in the secret handbook, even though the applicant's we're only required to comment on those with substantial or more than small impact. We have covered everything. Again, some of the format will be improved upon. We're going to basically bullet jack the items in the secret handbook and make it a little more clear and concise, but this is basically a framework. Our findings.
So what we have in front of us is a write-up with responses to it. The goal is, did we cover the issues that were raised? 2, have we covered the public comment that has been raised in a number of different areas? And we do have access to the transcripts for that. And what we're really looking at is a first draft. This is what will be posted up on the website for the public to access, with the intent that they would come at the next meeting and address what issues in here that we didn't address or didn't address it adequately, or that we did a great job on it and it doesn't need anything else. Always hope for that.
Predominant changes will be community character.
In each of the sections, because we'll be reviewing OSI's River to Ridge application shortly, and since they're adjoining properties, and since part of this, what they're doing here and the subdivision will affect OSI's application, there's an OSI addendum in each of the sections. We haven't had the application from OSI, but we basically know it's building a trail system, and that's all that they're actually doing on the property. So when you're reading this, understand we're not doing a seek and determine on the OSI application yet. But if there's a link between the two, for whatever reason, hillside lot is one of the predominant ones, but one may have an impact on the other one. And all we're just trying to do is, did we capture it? Did we address it adequately? We still have to do a separate application for OSI, but because they're coming in back to back, we're trying to make sure that we're see the interrelationship between the two and are able to document it. So that's why you'll see an OSI addendum at the bottom of each of the sections on it. As Carol aptly noted, it's a first draft through. Mohawk Reserve on the 20th of January, I got the date right, will be going before the Historic Preservation Committee for a public hearing on a certificate of appropriateness. I knew it was an A, just couldn't figure out the wording. So the historic section is still, it's anticipated, but it won't be final until they actually do something on historic preservation. And they're scheduled for, like I said, January 20th for that.
And Glenn, is that for just the testimony of Gatehouse? Because that's what I saw on the paper. I didn't see a legal notice for the house.
No, so we actually currently have a certificate of appropriateness for the maintenance of the gatehouse, the structure itself. This is the certificate of appropriateness to look at the relationship, the site plan, the historic structure, and the historic landscape elements.
Does it apply to both proposals?
So yes,
You're
beyond
saying
the
yes.
testimony gateway, it's really the entire site plan area.
The only thing that's been wholly determined by the Historic Preservation Commission is those repairs and maintenance to the gatehouse itself. That we decided.
So that's what they'll be doing for the whole site.
Do we have a copy of that application?
Yeah, it's been on file on it there.
It's on your town.
It's on the town, all right,
Yeah.
I apologize.
And those ones,
I don't think HPC's meetings are historic, are televised. They may be historic, but.
in response to your question, has been provided a second next go around will also have citations of all the documents that have been reviewed for this particulars.
We did send copies of some revised site plans that are included in HPC.
Yeah, which is, I guess,
Right, we would expect, going through this, modifying this, coming up with a determination, and then reviewing all the site plan issues that have been outstanding for it. But to take into consideration the other steps that they've taken thus far. So, I think I don't want to get too much bogged down in it, but I ask you to read it over. And see if we can get some comments back in. Or questions. I mean, you don't have to rewrite something. But if you do have questions or sections on it, let's see if we can work it through that way. But this is the one that's going up on the website tomorrow to give the public adequate time to read it over themselves and to comment on that. That's the steps I want to take. Any comments, Lyle, anything? Tom?
I have a question, and it's in the transportation section, and it was brought up at the open hearing tonight. Apparently, everybody's in agreement that the Gatehouse Road intersection is an issue. And I'd like to propose that we bring in the highway superintendent for one of our meetings when we hit this area. I've spoke with him. He does recognize there's an issue. He does have some good ways to mitigate that. He has some good ideas, and I think it would be beneficial to have him present it to both the board and the applicants on how we might be able to fix it.
Yeah, I want to take a look at the option A and B, was it, or 1 and 2? I just think that a little bit clarified.
Well, let me, if I may, just comment on that. I mean, this plan really has one final proposal in it, and it's the product of looking at, from the very beginning, you know, would we want to bring ingress and egress in through that Gatehouse Road intersection? And we determined that because it's a problem intersection, we agree it should be a T. We don't also want to load cars coming into our site at that intersection, creating more traffic and more potential problems there, even if it were improved. So that's why we chose a site, and we talked with a lot of neighbors on both sides of the site, and we chose a site off the state highway that's over 800 feet from this intersection to avoid that intersection completely and not load to any of the traffic problems or load to this tertiary road, Gatehouse Road, traffic coming in. So we have a site that's far removed from that intersection.
One at a time.
This is Route 299 is here.
Yeah,
Okay.
and where's Jacobs?
Jacobs is right here. Gatehouse Road is here. And I believe the option B would have been to make One Lane the main entrance. Is that correct, Ron?
bring traffic into the parking this way.
That's what I'm not, that this is, there's so many different variations of this. When I spoke with the highway superintendent, he was, just wanted a safe entrance coming out, and there is some concern that inadvertently you are creating, there's a possibility of creating another hazard with no turning lane on the entrance of going into your parking lot. So without coming to a safe corner there and doing it, I guess my opinion is we should do it right and then proceed on from there. And it's not, I think it's going to help the town, it's going to help the residents, and it's going to help our mountain preserve, just to look at it.
You're talking about modifying gateway without regard to where the project entrance is.
That's correct.
I spoke briefly with Ken Worstead today. He did take a quick look at the traffic analysis, the accident report. Said that all of these intersections east of Butterville seem to have somewhat higher than average accident levels. In particular, Butterville, I think he said was 2 or 3 times the expected. So what I'm sort of wondering is, does it make sense to invite Ken and the traffic and the highway superintendent to perhaps coordinate and if necessary come to the meeting, but agree on what plan might be appropriate, look at potential, that's to extent, plan modifications could move things, and maybe then come to the meeting with some information and analysis again.
We had talked and mentioned about turning the gatehouse into a right turn at the meetings here. And I did also talk to Chris, and just be happy everybody's mentioning his name at the meeting. But I think we could have Chris come in and lay out what he envisions to square off gatehouse. I think looking at the accident information, it gives us justification. Again, it's a town road, so it's a town obligation to do something about it. But seeing that, I think it has the potential to address some of the issues that have been raised. So I would have Ken, to that extent, and Chris get together and talk about it, and Ted. But basically, yeah, we did talk about.
I'm not thinking fiscal meetings so much as having Ken and Chris look at the plan and decide how all that should be accomplished. And then have Ken perhaps come with Chris and talk about that overall stretch, that specific intersection, and any other issues that may involve the highway superintendent, as far as traffic and parking. That way, you'll have not a discussion, but the actual plan that's been reviewed by the before. And certainly the applicant's engineer.
Yeah. No, I think, one of the things we wanted to do with this is to go to the town board, to give them the intersection of gatehouse and the ability to square it off or perpendicular it off, as the case may be. 2, to show them the accident statistics that are occurring at Butterville, Gatehouse, Libertyville Road, over a number of years. And 3, to work with town board of Gardner to see if they wanted to do it, because they had issues about the speed too. And the 3, to put it together and petition DOT about dropping the speed limit on it. I think gatehouse, doing the gatehouse perpendicular will get, lose people driving straight out onto the highway or not driving straight on the highway. It slows them down. It gives the people the ability to look right and left when they come up to the intersection of Gatehouse coming onto 299. It slows people getting off 299 onto Gatehouse Road, because now they have to make a right turn rather than just continue on with a slight angle. But I think Butterville falls into that, Libertyville is at an angle too. We should really have I think we're not gonna get all the roads changed, but if we can get the speed limits down, maybe we'll make it a safer road. But that's the intent here, so, that's a good point. Yeah.
If you straighten the intersection of Gate House, you're actually shortening the distance between there and the parking lot. So at 60 miles an hour, you're like, at 800 feet, you're 9 seconds that you have. And for every 4 cars that are slowed down to turn into your parking lot, that's about 100 feet. So you're taking away more seconds of people coming up that hill that have, reaction time and things you go to.
So I think we can, I mean, I defer to Mr. Marks, but I think that bringing that intersection to a T doesn't have to move to the west. I think it can be done within the existing pavement area. But I defer to Mr. Marks.
I was thinking you.
No, when I talked to Chris, he was basically in the same pavement area. His issue was to make sure that the driveways of those 3 homes that are right there, that was his part of how do I connect them to the road, but he thought he, in his right of way, he could, so. Well, until we see a plan and something like that, we could raise that issue on it, but I will work with Ken, Ted, and we'll go through you and Chris and lay this out and see if you can come back in and give us an idea of how to look at that intersection and the other intersections. Because clearly everybody wants to do the right thing, but we haven't gotten off the dime, and I think what we're trying to do is give the justification to do the right thing. Speeds, to get the speed down, the accident information, the roads, angles as they cut in, and the town taking the step to fix their end of the problem. I think it says from New Paltz Town, we're doing our share to do it, now DOT give us a hand on their share. At least I see that.
Just as a point of information, Ken also mentioned that there was a request for a sensitivity analysis to be done, and he was not aware of it. Well, he has
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah,
Cool.
so it's, this report, Carol, this covers both projects, or? What do you mean both projects? Oh,
Subdivision.
No, both.
Subdivision and site plan.
No.
Oh.
With the
Yes.
Hasbrook
And, yes.
We're looking at this as accordingly, even though they're 2 separate applications.
No, it's one application.
Part of the site plan, and the hillside one is the subdivision.
So the 2 different application numbers I have, or?
One is for the subdivision, they're subdividing land off, and the other one is for the site plan, which includes Hasbrook House and Gate House. Okay?
Have you got a complete set of the application materials that been submitted?
I'm not sure. I have a small.
Your file has about.
No, it's not. Most of it's on my computer, so.
Maybe the applicant could provide an updated.
Sure, I mean, if you go to the preserve's website,
Right.
both all the current site plan materials of the planning board, notwithstanding the ones that are going to be coming in shortly that will update this, and all the current HPC are both on the same page on the preserve's website.
Okay, that's easy enough, thanks.
And they should, I believe everything is current to date on the town's website as well. But,
There was a big submission in July.
I mean, probably it's all up on the town's website too, and so I haven't downloaded it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Amy, anything?
I was thinking about mentioning the idea of getting some kind of traffic lights over there. And I know people probably might not want that because people don't want to see red lights, yellow lights, green lights. But so many people have brought up these safety issues, and I'm really worried about it. I mean, I don't want to see people people getting into accidents, and we are inviting a lot of guests into our community who have no idea where they're going. Whether we have good signage showing, which direction the project's in, where the parking is, I think the signage is really, really important. But I'm also, maybe we don't want to have a whole traffic light, maybe we just want to have like a yellow flashing light. When I go into a new area and I don't really know what I'm doing, if I see a yellow light, I slow down. And I say, oh, this is a place I should be a little more careful, and it's kind of alerting people to the fact that there could be a problem over there. So maybe not a full traffic light, but a yellow flashing light or
I don't know if you can,
the DOT.
can substantiate the warranty of that. I mean, it's
We have 100
with DOT, and it's kind of out of our control on the state.
We have over
road.
100 accidents, so we do have a leg to stand on if we go to see it.
Yeah, but, there are 100 accidents that were not in our, just in our record. And that's, but, I mean, it's the other thing too is maybe, I mean, it's something that you can look at, maybe with some more signage,
Well, it's something that they're gonna have to work.
Yeah, there are a lot of modern traffic calming techniques that you might be able to implement without being signage or, hard controls that people can as well.
Yeah, it's probably jurisdictional control,
We have to ask.
we have to ask.
We don't
And
ask.
That's what I want to ask with the facts, and more so than just ask, because that's why I asked for the accident information, and the effort that we'll do to cover traffic coming out of the gatehouse. Because you don't want DOT to come back and say, well, problem is, your side streets are all crooked. And that's why you have the problems on there.
And people, I mean, Lou's point, we observed people that didn't stop at the stop sign. We have no control over that. I mean, there's people that are just bad drivers, they don't stop at the stop sign.
Well,
So it's,
no, I think what Lou was pointing out is not that they were not stopping, it's the layout of the road
yeah.
gives you that opportunity to go through that. Yeah. I'll put words in your mouth. Okay, so we'll work on that. All right. And so next meeting, we'll continue the public hearing basically on the preliminary findings associated with the part 3 of the draft environmental impact statement. And hopefully to try to make sure we get everything in there and bring that to a conclusion. Yep. Let me just, if you can read the discussion, I'll let you know. I'll get with Chris and Ken and get them to get some dates and get you on. I'll just email everybody and see if we can set that up. Okay? Yeah, thanks. Take a 1-minute break. Okay. Read that, I'm gonna forget that. Okay, we got a number of documents from you, or emails from you over the holidays. I think first of all, I want to let Michael to explain his position on this.
All right, so as people know, prior to joining the planning board, I made a number of comments at public hearings about concerns that I have about the process and the potential impacts of the Trans-Hudson Management site plan as it's currently proposed. And so recently I was indirectly asked from one attorney to another to voluntarily recuse myself from deliberations associated with Trans-Hudson Management. And I want to say that I declined to recuse myself from deliberations and as a voting member of the planning board for this project. My concerns have been and continue to be about the process and the potential impacts of the current site plan. I've never said if I were on the planning board I would vote against this project. I've instead repeatedly asked for information and data required to properly evaluate its application and have asked for modifications to data analysis methods. Those are legitimate things to ask for as a citizen of a community and certainly as a member of the planning board, as I do, and I exercise that right as a member of the village planning board. As I do with all applications that I review, I remain open-minded, seeking facts and hoping to establish a dialogue with the applicant and the community to achieve the best possible outcome.
Thank you.
Do I have a chance to say something about it?
I'm not sure.
I think I do. I just want to, Michael, I congratulate you for getting on board. I think you do have something to offer with your experience on the village planning board. However, I have to respectfully disagree. And again, it may be a funny statement to say it's not personal, because it is. It comes down to some specific statements that I think we've made on the record that show that I think I have some severe doubts of being impartial about the project. And it starts from back in, and just give me a few minutes, that it starts from back in the initial public hearing back in May 11th of 2015. You were a signatory to a letter that was read verbatim by Ms. Weissner, or Wisner, well, excuse me if I get it incorrectly, but quotes from that letter in particular, I think, you know, it starts then and continues on. But part of that letter, quotes, and you're a signatory to this letter, we do not need another pharmacy in New Paltz. We already have 3. When asked by a planning board member why another drugstore in New Paltz and why such a large one, the response from CBS, letter dated CBS April 20, 2015, from Kristen Potter, ignored the existence of other facilities. And it goes on that, quote, in that letter, we respectfully disagree that our community's need for a high-quality pharmacy services aren't already met by Dietrich's Rite Aid and Stop and Shop. CVS is the Walmart of pharmacies. Their interests do not coincide with the interests of the majority of the people in our community. We prefer shopping at local shops where dollars largely circulate to our local businesses. This will not happen with CVS. The dollars will flee New Paltz and go to support this Fortune 500 company and their shareholders. The jobs are low wage and part-time. This is not the kind of corporation we want in New Paltz. This is a mockery of our community values. CVS doesn't care if they shut down our existing pharmacies and related stores. They care about making money, that's it. They don't care what their mega store does to the character of our town. We do not want this development to be our welcome to New Paltz. Says thank you for your time sincerely, and your name is the first signature on that letter. I think that shows a foregone conclusion that you are against this project.
No, it doesn't. What it shows is that your site plan, as it currently exists, is inconsistent with what it is that we would like to have in our gateway, but it does not preclude my having a conversation with the applicant in order to try to mitigate issues that I have repeatedly brought up having to do specifically with the site plan, with clearing something on the order of 5 acres of trees and bringing in 30,000 square yards of soil to basically remodel the site in order to put up what it is you want to put up. As an example, years ago when Woodland Pond first came in front of the village, their original proposal was to spread out their development on the order of something like 20 to 30 acres. And what the planning board at that time did, I was not a member, but I was on the village board as a trustee during that and was active in that process. What they did was they worked with the applicant to reconfigure it in order to cluster the site and dramatically change the impact that it had on the land. And the result is that something on the order of about 35 acres of land was set aside as a conservation easement. More recently, when proposal to build a hotel and condominium complex came in front of the village planning board, of which I am a member, and I was at that time, what we did was talk to them about one of the things that I said I would be delighted to have a hotel downtown, but there were a number of site-related issues in terms of the scale of the project and the way in which the building was laid out in relationship to roads and other buildings that I objected to. Those are the things that I object to. My personal considerations about CVS are not going to color my ability to make a decision. If Starbucks comes into New Paltz and wants to build another store, it may not be my favorite, but that's not a fatal error on my part. That's not fatal in my ability to judge the application as it's presented to us.
Okay, if I could continue, thank you for those comments, but if I continue, May 27th, public hearing. This is again your testimony. The applicant CPS is doing here what they do in communities everywhere across the United States, and they're doing it year after year. They do it without regard for traffic impacts, sensitivity to historic buildings, concerns for community character and values, the economic impacts already existing local businesses, or on environmental destruction. There are numerous examples on the internet. If you'd like to see them, the kinds of buildings they've torn down, 200-year-old historic buildings, cemeteries, and the like. Almost all of the problems about this application here in New Paltz come back to the details of this specific site plan.
Correct, absolutely.
But no, seriously, again, the point I'm making, and I was hopeful I can convince you of it, it's not just issues about the technicality of the site plan. I think you have a bias against the applicant themselves and the corporation.
You know, what I have a bias against is when applicants do not work with the planning board in a way that respects and appreciates what a community has to offer. And in the case of Woodland Pond, for example, they were very willing to alter their site plan in order to meet the concerns of future residents who were then people who lived in New Paltz, as well as residents throughout the community. And as I've seen over and over again with applications I've had in front of the village planning board for the last 4 years, the applicants who are willing to work with the planning board and to make compromises and to understand the impacts that they're having are the ones that typically are able to get most of what they want, respect what the community is asking, and get through the process much more quickly. The problem in your case has been that, let's see, you submitted 3 environmental assessment forms. The first 2 were on old formats that the DEC stopped using 2.5 years ago. And despite repeated comments by the town engineer and subsequently people from the community, you still didn't submit one successfully until months after it was first brought to your attention. And it was remiss in numerous places with information that was required, and only subsequently after it was brought up by citizens.
All right, I want
I don't want to sit and have a lecture about it.
The point is this. The point is that when people on this board, before I sat here today, have asked for information, the applicant, not CVS necessarily, but Trans Hudson, that is the applicant, as you repeatedly pointed out. They and CVS have been very slow to provide information that will enable this board to make an informed decision about this project. That to me is the problem. The problem is the process and the dearth of information that you're willing to provide to work with this board in good faith. And I don't think that you would find disagreement from what I'm saying among people on this in terms of the visual impacts, in terms of the architecture of the building, and those are the things that I am sitting here hoping that as a planning board member, I can have an impact in trying to get the information we need so that we can make an informed decision about about your environmental
But sir,
assessment.
I would say you've already reached an opinion about the project that
No, I haven't
prevents
made-
you from being impartial on the
No,
project.
that's absolutely
Well,
not true.
Mike, I got it on record, June 22nd at the public hearing, you bring up comments about a conflict of interest on the traffic end, the board's hired traffic engineer. I don't know how you would be able to sit here and,
And a sitting member of the planning board also made that comment.
but I'm talking about you specifically now, though it's CME, Creighton Management, whatever, engineering.
Yeah.
Appears to have a conflict of interest. It's clear that they've worked with CDS as a traffic engineer at least 3 times in the last 10 years or so.
Okay.
Including his recent, I would ask that to avoid any appearance of conflict. A new traffic engineering firm be used by the planning board. How are you going to reach a conclusion about what Creighton Management says, if you have that belief?
My conclusion will be based on the data they provide and whether or not I feel that they have adequately provided the traffic information that we need in order to make that.
And then,
I'm not,
well, one last point, then I'll give up. Well, I won't give up on it, but I'll rest my case for tonight.
Sure.
September 28th, last public hearing, last day of the public hearing. Again, Mike, your direct quote, "Let me deliver the punchline up front here. This proposal will generate numerous moderate to large impacts on a variety of things. Significant impacts on the site itself, impacts on neighboring downstream surface waters, ponds, wetlands, impacts on groundwater, the local ecosystem, the migratory species will be affected, traffic at the site and surrounding residential neighborhoods will be affected. This proposal is verifiably inconsistent with our master plan and other adopted land use plans. It will have an impact, as people have said, on the economics and quality of life."
okay.
That, sir, is a conclusion that's been drawn.
That's all language that is directly designed to focus on the issues that need to be considered when completing part 2 and part 3 of an EA.
Okay, I think that we have a disagreement about that. I think it draws a conclusion on your part, and it shows partiality.
All right, I think we've had a discussion, gone through. For the purpose of, for the board, I will take this information from the applicant and the information from Michael, and ask for, send it off to the ethics board. This is generally what you do when there is a conflict at least, and see if it's any violation of the town's ethics law.
May not be so much about it.
No.
I circulated to the chairman in the formal opinion of the Attorney General regarding a similar conflict that had been raised. And one of the suggestions there is to seek an advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics with regard to the conduct that's complained of. What I think might be helpful is if you'd be willing to write out a letter.
Sure. No, certainly, sir. Just yeah, what I
So
do.
you saw your concern and the record that you're drawing upon so that the ethics board can consider that.
So unless I'm going to be invited to speak in front of the ethics board, I'd like a copy of the letter so that I can write a response to it.
Well, what I think you would want to do, I think that letter goes to, I think it should be addressed to the board. The board can then refer it to the ethics board and ask for an advisory opinion, or you could ask for an advisory opinion.
Well, he is.
If you're able to do that.
Okay.
And that board may choose to advise you, it may not, depending upon the nature of the issue that's put to them. But I think that's certainly got the opportunity to provide some perspective to the involved parties. I will note the Attorney General also says that ultimately the decision about whether there is conflict is up to the individual. Although if there is a challenge to your participation, of course, there's nothing to say about it. Of course.
Okay. We got past.
I'm not happy.
Hello. We have done, in November and December, review of the part 2 of the environmental assessment form. Reviewed all the issues that were presented there, and have gone on to develop our part 3 similar to what we've done in Mohawk and LP Builders now. Dave put out the preliminary one in December to get a look through on it. I just want to remind the board, it's a board document, it's our document to do with as we want. The idea is to review this, to go back to see if we have been responsive to the issues that have been raised, have been responsive to the comments that have been raised in the public hearings. Are we leaving anything out? Are we not covering something in detail? And to get something back. Dave, just a high note on what we've done from the last one to this one.
We made a few additions to it. The traffic engineer took the traffic section and made several revisions to that portion. That starts on page 14. I got Norbert, the ecological consultant, to review what we had put together on the plants and animals part, and got his comments back, which were very minor. I added some information about the clearing and grade permit. That will apply since there's more than 10,000 square feet of clearing and there's more than 40 cubic yards of fill material that's going to be added to the site. I would like to comment on that I wrote the clearing and grading code several years ago. And the purpose for that was, there was a lot of activity going on at the time that the people were doing some pre-application site preparation. The town really didn't have a way to be able to control that. Developers were going in and leveling sites and then before they made their application. This went through, I think, about 4 public hearings, and my original code survived somewhat. It was edited by comments made by the public. There was no intent in the first part of the code to include clearing and grading as part of a site plan review process or subdivision review process, simply because everything that you do in that clearing and grading, you do in the site plan. So it can be concurrent with that. There's no new plans that are going to be required more than those that are required in the site plan. You can't go through that. There is some really good pieces in that clearing and grading code about replacement trees. There's also, the board can put conditions on what's going on, what's being planned that are appropriate on the site, so we can get should be able to get some very good landscaping out of this. And there's something in this that was in there in the first draft about making sure that the trees in the perimeter of the fill would be protected, preserved. Anything that was 2 feet or less fill would be trees that could be either put in tree wells or you could grade around them to make sure that you didn't disturb the root system. That's basically what's in this newest draft. George called me this afternoon and went through some other items that will be coming out in the next draft. I'm really looking for more inclusions, anything that the board has that they feel hasn't been covered here that should be covered, please send it.
I just talked about 2 of the things that Dave and I discussed. One is the project at your request. The narrative was modified to look at the potential for impact from a future development phase and 3rd phase. It came to the board's attention that there was a real estate listing for a 3rd pad site. So you asked that the applicant develop a conceptual plan for potential development on that 3rd pad site and provide analysis of the potential impacts. Basically, to ascertain whether there's anything that might be resulting from that could rise to a level of significance. So there's a discussion in the traffic session, there's a discussion of it in community character, community plans, in the habitat area. But it's a little bit fragmented in terms of how it came out in the narrative. What I suggested to Dave is that we do a prelude, basically, and say, this is studying the proposed application. It also considers potential for development on the 3rd pad site. There's no tenant in it, so you can't know what that's going to be, but what the applicant was asked to look at and did provide information on was the kind of typical retail development that might happen on the site. And if I recall, it's 1 restaurant or 2.
There's a bank.
That's where an office building.
Yeah, but they're office building.
It's relatively, it's not a marshmallow kind of impact. So I'm going to work with Dave to put that into a separate segment so that it is identified in a little bit more coherent fashion and the impacts. Basically, we'll direct you to where the impacts are discussed. The other consideration that we talked about is for both community character and visual impacts. There was discussion about the nature of the impacts this project will have. When we did the Hampton Inn in 2010, there was a very specific discussion about the building design and building character, how it fit in with the community, and went to the level of pointing to specific projects more than previously included, such as Ulster Savings Bank, the Mobile Station, which had done a fairly detailed and robust landscaping and architectural treatment, so that those were like reference points for what is consistent with the future community character. I think the board would probably agree Shopfront is not necessarily reflective of the board's current philosophy on that. But I talked to Dave about trying to adapt that so we have a similar approach to the discussion of community character and consistency with community plans in those sections. But for the board's information, one of the specific points the board discussed in that litigation is whether the hotel was consistent with the small town character of the New Paltz community. And if you look at the plan, and we did look at it in the context of that litigation, there is one section which talks about the small town character further down 299 Village. And then there's a second section which talks about the shopping centers, the relatively unsmall town character of the area between the town boundary and through. And that secret determination went to litigation. That was a specific point, one of the specific points was challenged. And I think that's something that you should be aware of and take into account when you're doing this one, because that was on the south side of 299, so it was almost directly across on the north side, and there were points that the board did consider as to why that hotel, even though it's much larger than CDS, would be consistent with the character of the town of New Paltz as it's reflected in the comprehensive plan of the town. I'll work with Dave and see if there's appropriate points to include this as well.
So this issue about a prelude, which touches on items related to the third pad site. I don't understand why we aren't taking a more holistic approach here. The reality is that this is a single site under single ownership, that the application that's in front of us is for a portion of the property to be developed. But there's plenty of evidence, both in numerous documents that the applicant has provided, as well as the advertising, that there's a good likelihood that future development will occur on the site. And even without that, there's plenty of information in seeker that says that you need to look at from the point of view of seeker, we need to look at the potential impacts of the entire site. That it's not okay, under most circumstances, to come back at a later time and look at seeker again on the portion that gets built sometime in the future. You've effectively segmented the project in a way that, unless there is a specific reason to do a segmented review, seeker strongly discourages that. So why aren't we looking at this from the point of view, why aren't we starting with part one and saying, okay, what's the potential build out of the whole site with this application as it's given, plus what the zoning allows for the rest of the site? And do the whole EAF from that point of view.
Well, that's what the applicant submissions have discussed. In terms of both the actual project and the potential for using this third pad site.
Right, but the information in the EAF does not reflect the third pad site. That is, part one doesn't reflect it, part two doesn't reflect it, so the decisions made about the significance of impacts are not reflected in that.
Well,
they might be scattered around in part three and we'd like to bring them together, but it's not clear to me that they're based on the information that would, well then, I mean, like, in other words, do we have
The cases say,
Yeah.
if you don't have a plan, you can't make an applicant, if they don't have a plan, you can't make an applicant review future conditions.
Sure, okay.
Okay, so obviously in this case, there is not a full form plan, but there's certainly indications the site will be developed and that the applicant has knowledge. At some point in the future with some. But when you talk about completing the EAF Part 1, the applicant is describing what is going to happen on the site. So he can tell you what the CBS and with five guys, there's specific areas of disturbance, there's a certain amount of water supply that's required and so on and so forth. With the remainder of the site, the third cat site, which appears to be pretty much the effective limit of disturbance from what I understand, they can't tell you that because they don't have a tenant, they don't have a specific application, they have the intent to do something at some point in the future, which is sort of like the halfway point between no plan at all and a specific phased development with a specific tenant having certain uses and characteristics.
If they get, say they were able to find a third tenant for the third pad site, they would have to come before us with a new application. And then we would have to do a new EIF. And it would be a whole other project, the way we would look at it. We wouldn't look at it with
It would
this.
be a whole other project plus, in the sense that you're doing an environmental review, this one, with that concept plan. So you're going to say, based on conceptual configuration for the pad site, we estimate this much disturbance, this much in the way of traffic, this much in the way of water and sewer. This is how it fits in with the overall community character analysis that we've done. If it departs from that, if it's much more intense, perhaps if it's much less intense, you can modify the conclusions that you reach in your secret determination with respect to this project. To say, if the traffic is greater, this is what has to be done in addition, or if you have your sensitivity analysis and it says a certain amount of traffic can be accommodated on the road network. If it goes beyond that, there is need for a greater level of traffic analysis than you might otherwise do simply for an application.
So you basically can put a scope on the possibilities of what would it create on a third site.
Woodbury Commons talked about it in terms of, in their case of the traffic issue. They talked about the traffic question. So if you do a certain amount of development, this is what you need to do in that phase of development in terms of traffic improvements. If you go beyond that, you add on some additional traffic improvements. This is not Woodbury Commons, but you can say that there is, based on the traffic analysis that has been done now, for the foreseeable future, there's a certain amount of traffic that still could be accommodated or not. I don't recall what the conclusion would be, but you can say that's what the amount of flux is for that future bed site. So if it can be accommodated without a significant impact, you can go forward with the anticipation that UNIS is not required to look at the overall project on the site.
You're talking about the current, not what Amy brought up as doing this in the future. You're talking about the EAF we're evaluating now.
Well, we're talking about 3 stages.
Yeah.
One is just looking at CBS. One is looking at CBS plus a conceptual project. That's really a guess as to rough parameters about what might happen. And what the impacts today would be if that was included in CBS. The third thing is you look at that future date when somebody actually comes in with, when the applicant comes in with a tenant and says this is what I'm actually putting in. And then you can, to some extent, look back and say, well, we looked at the concept of such and such. Your traffic is twice as heavy. And your traffic involves some type of vehicle that's going to have a greater impact than you anticipated at that point in the past. Or you can just say, the overall, it's been 5 years, and the traffic characteristics change. Now you have to go back and do the traffic study all over.
So,
I think that last point from George is important, the timing of when that actual third pass of application, if it ever comes, is going to be important, because you have this, what we call sensitivity analysis, that the board asks us to do here. But, so if that other application came 5 years from now, that sensitivity analysis would not be applicable anymore. And you're going to have to look at it over again anyway, depending on what this.
I think a lot of people would feel a lot more comfortable if they had some kind of an idea what we could expect there. I mean, right now, I mean, there's.
Well, you do.
We know it's going to be retail, we know it could be an office building, there's a big difference between a doctor's office and a Walmart.
Correct, and because we don't know what the tenant would be, if we even are going to have a tenant, we can't pay that information yet. So, and we, again, I'll emphasize, the project is the CPS and the 5-Tex, those are known entities. The third site, if it ever comes, we have to look at the specifics of what that is, and it would be a new application.
So there are two issues with that. All of what you say is true, but here are the two issues. Under seeker, we're supposed to avoid segmentation, and this smells a lot like segmentation the way we're doing this. I'm not asking you to respond. So I'm asking our attorney what's going on, and it seems to me that when we did part 2, we weren't, I don't have the numbers, I don't even actually have the part 2. But I understand what you're saying about the applicant's limitations in terms of what they can do in part 1. They can only fill out the part that they have with respect to their application, but we have a responsibility under seeker when we evaluate it to look at the entire potential build out on the site. And it doesn't even matter if they have advertising listed. We look at our current zoning and we say, what's the maximum possible build out under the allowable conditions? The allowable uses, the allowable bulk regulations, et cetera, and we have to do part 2 based on that. Anything less than that is segmentation, and I don't know why we're sort of skirting around the edges. And my second point is that if nothing ever gets built there, we have the potential to do things with that site with this current application that we won't have if there's this possibility of an additional development on the site in the future. For example, in their SWIP, they respond to a number of things that could potentially provide open space for green infrastructure and other things. And they say they can't do that because of the potential of future development. That's fine if that's their response, but then we need to take that into account under seeker. And if it's not going to happen, then we can use that. But if we don't do it, then what happens is we review a site plan where, at the end of the day, we haven't done the best job that we can do with that application because we're sort of caught in the middle here. So why are we doing what looks like segmentation? That's my question.
Frankly, it's not. Segmentation is when you divide up review for the purpose of avoiding.
For the purpose of avoiding what?
For the purpose of avoiding environmental review the whole lot.
Okay.
So, for example, Westbury, there was a highway project proposed, there was another related highway improvement. They were both related, they were being done for the same purpose. The DOT went and did a review on one, but not on the other. So didn't want to go through the EIS.
Okay.
It's clearly a segmentation. Because you have two things going on, you're dividing them up, the purpose of dividing them up is to avoid review. In this case, you're not avoiding review of a future phase because you don't know what that's going to be. Except to the extent you can say, there may be a third pad site, there may be typical kind of development on it, it may have typical impacts of that kind of development. Okay. So if you have a western and a thing, you can look at the traffic that those two kinds of uses would generate. You can look at approximate size for two typical uses, given the available space, and you can look at how that fits onto the traffic network. Not to know exactly what's going to happen with a bank and a bank and an office. Whatever those two uses are, you can look. You can't say 2 years from now he's going to get a tenant who's a bank, and he's going to get a tenant who wants to work in office, they're going to be this big, and that's what the impacts are going to be. You don't have that information because there was a specific plan to do that. We obviously would like to use the property, we would like to use it for uses presumably allowed by the zone. So you can forecast it's going to be like something, but you don't know the details, you don't know how much disturbance it's going to require. Whether it's going to be one-story or two-story office building, there's just uncertainty. But what you can do at this point is look to see, based on what is reasonably, a reasonable scenario, you can add that to the equation and say, is there going to be a big traffic problem? Is it going to affect the entrance? Is it going to require some sort of modification of the stormwater plan that needs to be changed in a dramatic fashion? There are sensitivity things that you can do. Basically, without knowing exactly how many people are coming to the party, you know, you can say 60th birthday party, you probably need a bigger room than if it's 23rd. I'm stretching here, but the point of this is you're not trying to avoid analysis, you're trying to do reasonable analysis, which is secret is inherently reasonability. You're trying to do something that's reasonable and appropriate under the circumstances to let you consider what impacts might exist with some level of future stuff happening on the property, but you don't have the ability to say what it is and how much it is. That said, you can say, this traffic study showing the conceptual analysis shows that with that additional traffic, this single will be at its maximum capacity. There are ways you can quantify it to say, if you go that high, you're going to have to put a new signal in, you're going to have to put a new turn lane in, whatever the data generates from that conceptual thing, but recognizing that it's a conceptual conclusion. It's not saying 2 years from now you have to put the turn lane.
Understand that. What we're doing is seeker analysis. And so I just need to know that we have data that, I never suggested that this was anything nefarious, but just that it isn't evident to me that we have, you know, as I read through this version of part 3, so for instance, in terms of land use impacts, the analysis, it isn't evident to me other than a parenthetic statement that what we're doing is actually considering the potential impacts of clearing the entire site for 5+ acres as opposed to something slightly less, 3.4 acres.
Which is part of the reason I suggest doing that introduction.
All right, well, let's see what that, let's see if that actually addresses those issues in a way that makes it easier for us to assess the level of impact.
I think we've, since day one on conceptual plan, have looked at the entire site development, build out on it. What can be done from a site plan point of view? We'll start with that. What physically can be done to the site, knowing water and sewer would be required, or septic would be required on it, knowing that we're not going to let additional road cuts onto North Putt or Route 299 be done. What would the layout look like and what would be impacted upon it? From that, just to get a concept of how much space is available on the site to do that. And I think that's where we came up with the number and the location. So we do have and I'll go back to the conceptual plan of additional site on it that could be built, but would have limitations. Would be no more additional road cut, would require its own water and septic field. And that was the purpose of it. We didn't skirt the issue of it. We looked at it from the beginning, and I think we knew that from the beginning that we needed a full build out of the site. And the flip on, but the only thing they're doing on the site is what they presented. on the part one. I think I agree with George. Generally, we do have a sensitivity of development of it going out further. I think we could, if we wanted to, give some earmarks of how big an impact we would have before we would trigger something. But I'm not sure if I'm ready to do that, because things change, times change. I wouldn't want to limit the planning board from doing what they wanted to do for the third site.
Like extending these parameters, so putting something in there, like placeholder type, are we sort of de facto approving something?
That's what I would want to
I
do.
don't think that's what we want to do.
No.
We want
Like
to say, okay, it's going to be, for example, in traffic, it's going to be 20 more trips during the peak. Just as an example, you know, is there going to be 20 more than we should be considering that right now? And as long as it doesn't exceed that 20 more at the future point, that wouldn't be a bone of contention.
Right. I really think it's for informational purposes only, because, you know, I would come back, I would, you know, say for instance, I came back here 3 years from now, after the project, we would come back and say, oh, right, we have a tenant. And now we know the specifics about what this tenant would be. And it has this kind of traffic impact, this kind of water impact. You know, back when we did the original project, you know, it was discussed in conceptual terms. But here it is now. Now we're talking about specifics. And, you know, the analysis showed it wasn't a problem then. It shouldn't be a problem now. Or maybe it is, and we have to do something different. But we don't get any vested rights from it. You know, it won't be on the site plan. You don't get any free pass from that. And you'd have to come back for a new application, and that would be a...
Yeah, I don't know if by putting, you know, like I said, the 20 cars, if that's putting a design guideline and said, don't come back with anything bigger than that. Or the flip side, if you come back with something less than that, you already got it. So, you know, it's two sides of the coin.
Well, for example, I would think that, you know where you're going to put the pad roughly. So any effect on stormwater drainage, it has to go through that culvert under.
And that was part of the sensitivity analysis, yeah.
That's got to be in the whole thing. You know, anything, any impact from building or parking, that isn't a changeable thing once you.
Right, and that's exactly, well, that's exactly what the sensitivity analysis showed. It was traffic, and it was basically drainage on the property. Showed that water,
sewer.
You know, that you showed. If you came in with something around this, you wouldn't have to wholesale rip up everything that's on the property to make this work. But that's not the same thing as saying that because you talked about it here, you get a free pass and you can just automatically build it. It's far, far from that.
You know, it has its pluses and minuses on it. To the extent that we think the sensitivity analysis is great, you can use it as a design guideline. If we're kind of, oh, it's okay, then I wouldn't use it as a design guideline. Either way, on this, they would have to come in, basically show the pad and the parking spaces associated with the whatever they're building in more detail, but it still all requires a site plan review of the whole thing. You may say, okay, here is an office that has very little traffic, and you may not need a detailed analysis on it, or it may be something that has drive-in doctors, I don't know, that has a much higher usage of cars and parking. So, but you don't know that until you get
It's
there.
also going to help the applicant, presume, figure out what kind of tenants really could fit on the site.
Yeah.
And you don't wind up with something that really is not going to work.
That's true, because you know, you get a tenant that comes along that would require you to change the water and sewer and the drainage on the property. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. But if you get a tenant that fits into an envelope that you know works with the site, then it's easier to go through the review process.
Like we have with the cut corners, GEIS, we have thresholds set on that, and it makes the environmental review a little easier if they fall under those thresholds, if we check with consistency analysis with that study for these properties.
Can I ask you a question, George? So potentially they would be allowed to have retail or offices there.
You could have any uses.
It's a B2 zone, it's allowed in the B2 zone.
So then they could put a hotel there.
It'd be very small.
That would be an example of something they probably should shy away from, to get the traffic for it.
Well, I agree with that, but I'm just saying that they could potentially come and ask us for some kind of a variance.
Yeah, well,
on third pad
Like-
site.
we're doing a review based on one set of conceptual uses on the site that appear to be, in terms of the size and the nature of the use, reasonably likely to happen on that property. And presumably this is demonstrating existing company. We didn't look at a hotel because that requires a lot of land. That actually.
But some retail could require a lot also.
Yeah.
Let them-
It could be, just because a retail or an office is allowed or whatever we propose there, they can certainly be done in greater extent. A bank could have a headquarters, a conference room, it could take up a lot of space, it's require a lot of parking, but it doesn't fit within the parameters of what's available on the site. So you're not going to get somebody looking to put a banking headquarters there, even though it would be permitted by zoning. What you're looking for is somebody who wants to have a sort of a pocket bank with sufficient parking for customers going out, basically, that's it. So there are, again, what we're looking at is just a concept, to give an idea or a sense of what could happen with typical contributions on the property.
So it kind of be anything listed in B2.
Could be anything listed.
It could be anything listed, but it has to physically.
The example is
Fit.
the Walmart. You can have retail, you can't have a Walmart.
Right, it's not gonna fit.
So you're looking at things that are allowed, and you're looking at quantities. When you have a 5-pound bag, 5 pounds. Maybe 4, if you want to put 7, 8, 10.
See, that was the concept of looking, okay, what can happen with the rest of the land? Well, I need parking, I need a septic field, I need a reserve septic field, I need a place for water, and I, you know, what do I have left?
Limitation kind of keeps it under control.
What can go in there? Well, yes, it kind of dictates that they can't, like I said, put a hotel in there.
That's the thing, 5 pounds room.
I just want to reiterate that from the point of view of seeker, and maybe this prelude you're talking about will clarify this, because I'm not aware of the sensitivity analysis. I don't, if this is a written document, I'll have to get a copy of it.
Yeah.
It's not something I have. But from the point of view of seeker, it isn't, it's just that as we go through each of the elements that we are required to look at, we want to make sure that we assess them from the point of view of what is possible there, not just what is in front of us.
Right. So it's like we have 20 pounds with CVS, we have a potential 5-pound bag right there. Right.
So
that's what this is intended to do, but
Okay.
recognizing this isn't going to approve 25 pounds.
Of course.
This is just saying we have 5 pounds.
Yeah, no, all I'm talking about is seeker. I'm not talking about the site plan review or any of that. So, thank you.
Yeah, we'll get you the sensitivity and we'll try to, I think, okay, that's the kind of things when I'm talking about reading over this, going through this, what's missing on it, and that's fine, that's one of the things that are missing on it, is to capture that sensitivity in those areas where it's applicable, and like you said, we looked at the land, drainage, groundwater, surface water, and you know, but you know, geology of the site's not going to change, and probably wouldn't matter on the sensitivity analysis. But I think it just, and then the other thing is transportation. We did look at the potential of what the transportation would look like and how would that fit under the current plans or current descriptions on it. So we can get that in with based on that sensitivity stuff on it. Is there anything off the top, Michael?
Well, I don't know exactly what our objectives are tonight. I have some specific comments about this version of the draft. I didn't have a chance to look at all of it in detail when it came on Friday. But in terms of so is it appropriate to address?
Generally, yeah, we generally do it, unless it's something that you want to, it's a kind of a policy decision you want to talk about it, or a decision, but if it's editorial or it's or clarifications or something to that effect.
I'm not sure how to categorize it exactly. But so land impacts are something that you identify as moderate to large land impacts may occur related to threshold H, and you refer to clearing and grading essentially is the crux of that. So under description of how impacts on land could be mitigated and reduced, in the second sentence you note, the proposed building, demolition, clearing, the imported soil to raise the elevation of the site and grading necessary to prepare the site cannot be avoided for the planned development. Which I guess is an accurate statement, given the current application. But to me, my question is, if we're going to consider alternative site plans, what's the best place to do that? Because to me, part of the concern that I have about this particular application is how it butts heads with the clearing and grading law. And I understand that that's something that we'll evaluate during the site plan, but in other words, the way you described the clearing and grading law earlier tonight gave me the sense that you presuppose that the application as proposed is okay and the law will, okay, so I don't mean to say that's what you said, but I was trying to, because you were talking about landscaping and so forth, but you do note somewhere else in here that it is conceivable that you could mitigate this with a different site plan that brings in less soil and presumably cuts down less trees and uses more of the topography that exists. And that, to me, has always been one of my issues. And to go back to something that I apologize, I don't actually know your last name. Basidlo, thank you. Appreciate it. So I'm sure I would have made it.
There is a
So,
point, Michael.
yeah.
There is
Anyway.
a point that you can't take it down too far because of the slope. You're
Sure.
going to lose your access off of 299. So
Yeah.
I guess we're getting back into sensitivity. There is some that it could go down, and that's something that certainly could be discussed with the applicant. They would be able to tell you what's possible without affecting that steep slope to the point that they really can't get access.
Right. Well,
So that's like one factor there. I think that access off of 299, although I was surprised that it was allowed, I think it's going to be really beneficial for the traffic, less intersection.
yeah, it's a trade-off. I mean, the impact on 299, putting a turnoff lane there might be a problem, but yes, it seems like it could reduce impacts on the north side.
You look at the site and you see that the front end of it is really excavated out. I know the bridge, which was 20 years ago when that happened.
Yes.
You some of that earth at that time, and I know before that, the thruway was taking earth.
Oh, that explains the.
I think and I look at the size of the trees in that area, and that does make some sense. Bigger trees are certainly beyond that, lowering the ridge.
I mean, I guess part of my point is that as we look at LP builders, for instance, and the applicant and the neighbors and the planning board is very focused on steep slopes as an integral part of this review, and I feel like in this project we're not applying the same principle, that we should be looking at the clearing and grading portion of our zoning code up front before we complete seeker as we consider the alternatives that exist. I mean, I know in EIS it's a big boogeyman to some people, and it's been floated around here for projects of all different sizes, but my concern is that once you get into site plan post-seeker, if if you haven't adequately brought these issues to the fore, it becomes much more difficult to work with an applicant on alternative site plans. And so I'd rather see that either upfront or as part of an EIS because it's built into an EIS.
I agree with you. I think seeker is a good point to really flesh out what that site plan is going to look like. You don't get into the details of the site plan, but if there's an alternative that's going to cause less impact, then it's something that should be.
Okay. So, and I guess my point is that we're in the middle, we're in the thick of part 3, so how do we fold that in at this point?
Well, go ahead.
Part 3 right now is saying this is what we've got, this is the plan we've got, but we're really looking for the board to say what could make that better. Because that's the best way. Anything in here that the board sees that they believe, and I know there's a couple things.
I have a couple, yeah.
Aesthetics and some other things that need to be worked on. But the board needs to be happy that there's some kind of structure on what we're going to find in that site plan.
Okay.
I think reading over it, if you think there's something from a site plan or from a part 1 that flags up, let's talk about it. I think I have a couple ideas in mind and I'll throw out, but I think, when I passed on, when we get to landscaping, it's really pull out the site plan and let's, before we write this thing up, what are we looking at in the site plan from a landscaping point of view, and do we have enough there, and can we say that we landscaped X amount of acres back into the site. So there's nothing wrong with pulling the site plan back up on the table, opening it out, and start pinpointing down things that you find in here. What?
Should I be asking for more landscaping details?
Well, I think when we're going through that, then we can pull the site. What I'm saying is, as we're going through this, if we think that we want to talk about the landscaping, is let's pull the site plan out, put it up, see what we got. I think I saw some spots that we thought we could add additional trees on the site, and that then factors into the calculations on a couple of other areas on it. So don't read it by itself without basically having the landscape, having the site plan out, and then when you're reading the areas on that, if it triggers something on it, one of the things is, I always get as an MS4, we have drainage off the site. Is what we're building there adequate for the third pad or not? And can we say yes it is or no it isn't definitively like?
Actually, the way it's designed, the third pad would do its own stormwater. It has provisions to be able to handle stormwater on that property that's left there. Everything is really independent on that third pad site. Parking, water, sewer.
Well, that's what we would say that it wouldn't impact. This is where the stormwater would go on site, meeting requirements and flow which way.
Property actually drops down as you go farther north, and so it's pretty ideal for stormwater to be separate on that, because you get in more of that.
He's up on the knoll there, yeah. So I think that's what I'm looking for you to do. I'm looking for you not to wordsmith at this stage, but to raise the larger issues.
What's the process? We send comments, what's your procedure for modifying and making suggestions?
Generally, what I look for in this type of area, if they're small editorial or questionable or clarification type comments, send them to Dave. If there's something you want to discuss with the board, send it to the board members or send it to Kelly.
One of the things you want to do,
Kelly and Jill.
when you send stuff out, it should be one way. So if you want to make a comment, you discuss it,
Yeah.
send it out, don't.
No, but not,
Yeah, no, I realize.
No back and forth. It's,
No, of course.
yeah, that's one of the things to bear in mind. It's not back and forth on. But if you've got an area here, is that, look, I'm really concerned about how we address this, and I think we're missing something here. I want to discuss it at the board meeting.
Okay. So
Send it out to the board, so everybody else can prep and see, read it and be able to have an intelligent discussion.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Where are we?
Where are we?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that. We're at stage 2, volume 2. This is the second go around. We have a new member on the board, and we got to go over it. I think we have different ideas or a better understanding of what we're looking for this going forward on it. I think that we'll get another round. What I think I'd like to see at the next meeting is really get out the site plan and start working and see what, if we mention something in here, do we understand what it is, what it imposes on that? You know, and if we don't, and we got a question on it, you know, do I have to bring in 300,000 yards of fill? Do I have to be 1 foot below the road level? Why? I never got that. That's a question I have that way. I agree with George that you're coming off 299 and there's you don't want to make it a ski slope. But is there some way of is there some way to mitigate that and lower the overall level of the amount of fill to bring in by lowering the site, and what do we get and how far can we push it? Those are things I see. Now, I'll think of that as a site plan. I think what I have in here is a max of fill that they would bring in. If I can get site plan to reduce that amount of fill, then I got something better than I have written in part 3. Maybe it's...
No, a couple of observations. One is, this is not listed action, which means it is not presumed to require EIS, but it could. One of the things that you're attempting to discover is there anything that rises towards the level of significance. It is in the applicant's interest as well to work with you on that, communicate so that, if, for example, the fill is of concern, that the applicant will work to design the site to avoid that issue, just as it would for context of type 1. If there's more flexibility. The point of that is there needs to be communication about the nature of the concerns that the board and the public have identified. So if the applicant does have an opportunity to consider those, consider, for example, whether a 1 foot or 2 foot reduction in the amount of fill is something we want to allow the site to work and address some of the more concern about truck traffic and so on. The other area of communication is the building design. We've got to get, I think, moving towards helping the applicant identify what needs to be done in order to address your concerns about the impact of the structure at this location on community character, and see whether there is opportunity for the applicant to work with the proposed tenants to come up with something that is acceptable to the board in terms of what we have traditionally approved. This, in that sense, you have sort of a foundation, something that looks like the entered in to something which you said is consistent with the guy. Something that looks like Ulster Savings Bank is again something you said is consistent with the character from the standpoint of design materials and appearance. So to the extent you can help the applicant, I understand it, frame the issue for its proposed tenants. So this is what we need to do. The applicant then moves towards a conclusion that we need something what we do for the tenant as well.
Yep.
One of the things we addressed lightly was maybe reducing slightly at least the number of parking spaces so that we could leave more natural trees, and rather than clear cutting the whole thing. And I don't know how possible that is because of the fill, but maybe that can be something that can be looked at, because shared parking between CVS and Five Guys, and that way we can.
We could bank something. If we think we got something, we can talk about that.
There's that issue too, about the idea of the bank.
Right.
I mean, that's an issue if you want to, even next time, as Mike said, we could go on the site plan and take a look at that issue, and see whether that's a possibility or not. I don't know, sitting here, I don't know, that's an engineering question. Take a look.
It's good when a lawyer doesn't get too brave and start doing
No,
engineering
that's
stuff.
right. But I can see an issue of, I hear about the grading, I hear about, the parking and the building architecture. Those are three areas that there is an interplay between the secret analysis.
So I would strongly think that the next meeting and review of this, that we take a look, everybody's got a site plan, and we take a look at the site plan, and if we're talking about something, have the visual in front of us, and let's address what the issue is there, and what we need to do with it. But, again, if it's issues that you want to bring up for discussion at the meeting, let the other board member, send it to Kelly to let the other board members know, so they're prepped to be able to talk about the same thing rather than trying to do it on the wing. If it's small questions or changes or even questions about what Dave wrote, feel free to contact Dave and say, where the hell did you put this in?
Kelly, too.
And copy Kelly. Purpose of copying Kelly is becomes part of the file. I like to have as complete a file as I can, because she likes making copies for litigation and things of that sort. But
Is there a time by which you like to get things in order to make sure that the board has time to?
she turns it around in about 13 seconds.
Oh, you don't, okay, so you send everything, but is there a day after which you, like, I don't want to, personally, I like to get stuff, some days in advance, ideally, 5 or 6 days in advance.
Well, I'd like it, yeah, if we're going to meet, this is a Monday,
Right.
I would like, Tuesday of next week,
Okay, that's what
okay, because Monday's a holiday, and,
So that,
at least for some, yes?
I have an idea, which I'm just.
I know she told me.
Okay, quick one.
You have a new member, you have some plan modifications that you're discussing with the bill. Possibly have preserved parking, those basically engineering questions. Does it make sense for perhaps the chairman, the new member, our engineer, and their engineer, to be for technical review during the daytime when everybody's fully conscious? Look at the kind of things that are being proposed and see if it can be accommodated on the site. Before they meet again with you, we talk about spend another discussion on
Okay.
Is that something that you believe the applicant will?
We can certainly accommodate that. Later, can meet with Dave and Mike if they think that would be helpful.
How about you?
I'm looking at Kelly to send out a note to Michael, David, myself, and to them to see if we can get a common up time to pull out the site plan and hold some holes.
From the board, that would one of the 10 should be included.
Up to 3.
Has to be this week. If it's not this week,
So as we get us around the next meeting, then we're going to try to go through this in detail. We're going to go through in detail. We're going to have the site plan out in front, and we're going to try to come to some conclusions.
we're going to see where the holes are, where the Swiss cheese is and where it isn't, and see where we go from there.
This would be the current.
Yeah, that's
That is.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would just be a.
This is what I just give to me.
Okay.
Maybe next week we would be on the last, some of the.
I don't control that agenda there. But if you're really nice to Kelly, she'll take good care of you on that one. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, board members, I got one object on old business. On the Mark Shane, we approved the project in December, and we sent it to county with the, that if there was no county impact, it was a done deal. The county did have required modifications to the project. The required modification was a sidewalk easement. Oh, didn't we grant them a sidewalk? See? We were ahead of but the plans that went up to them didn't have it, because we told them to draw it on, and they didn't have it. No, I think we were responsive to the county's comments, and therefore, the project's approved on it, but.
You can just vote, right?
We could have, yeah, we
have a
could.
vote as long as it's a super majority.
Right, just to make sure on it, county comment on it was to, have, easements for sidewalks associated with, the project. So I'll make a motion that, since we, asked for the same thing at our December meeting, it's noted in the notes, it will be required on the plan, that we grant approval for the Shane, site plan changes.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Right, you can send a report out. Nothing like Rob giving it to me at, what, 6 o'clock tonight? Minute to 5, so it's 5 o'clock. He sent it out saying they need a sidewalk. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. Have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Out the door.